seconds. Only an empty expanse of space remained, leaving no trace behind. After confirming invisibility, Lu Ling issued another command. Jump to Carthage. The Astro class gracefully turned. Jump engine preparing. Jump engine starting. The entire process took only 3 seconds, with no jump fluctuations or engine light appearing at the original location. Just over 20 seconds later, the screen displayed a blue planet. This was Lu Ling's fastest ship to date. He then contacted Sai Rue, instructing her to return to Carthage port. Looking at the planet before him, a thought suddenly crossed his mind. Ola, do not block any detectors from Juanbi. Target, 1,000 meters above the fortress by Lake Halifa. Jump directly. Captain. Shavina's voice carried a rare astonishment. Boss, are we? Sheen's eyes widened. Without giving them more time to react, the ship made fine adjustments. In the next moment, through the main screen, the surface of Carthage was suddenly pulled into view as if by a giant hand. Cities, lakes, and buildings enlarged at a breathtaking speed. Weila instinctively closed her eyes, while Sheen grabbed the nearby handrail. There were no vibrations, no flames from friction, and not even the roar of breaking the sound barrier. In just 2 seconds, in the blink of an eye, the scenery of Lake Fortress appeared 1,000 meters below, and the astrolabe floated above like a ghost. Sheen's breathing was somewhat rapid. Did Juanbi discover anything? Ola gave a straightforward answer. Comprehensive analysis. With the current technological level of the Parthian Empire, it is impossible to detect the spatial curvature interference generated by this jump. The precise high-dimensional energy field created by the cloaking device has effectively distorted the spatial structure in a very small area around the ship, achieving absolute concealment in terms of optics, thermodynamics, radar waves, and general spatial wave fluctuations. Atmospheric molecules and energy particles are guided around by the force field, with no interaction occurring. So, does this mean we've entered a local subspace state? That can be understood, but if a collision occurs, it will disrupt the stability of the force field. This was something Lu Ling already knew. He was satisfied, extremely satisfied, with the Astrolabe-class stealth ship. There were so many things they could do. Returning to the starport, the Astrolabe class began to turn around and reappeared at the outskirts of the starport 2 seconds later, next to the blue Carthage star. At that moment, the Death Spiral-class ship emerged from its jump and glided towards the starport. Chapter 129, Gravitational Mirage. The Astrolabe-class frigate, Ghost 1, floated silently like a specter integrated into the deep space background, hovering in the shadow of the massive hull of the Death Spiral. On the main screen, the external universe appeared stable and clear, with only a few readings on the sensor interface representing its own signal characteristics nearly at zero, indicating the presence of that powerful cloaking force field. In the bridge, Lu Ling temporarily transferred command to Savina. Maintain the cloaked state, and notify me immediately of any anomalies. Understood, Captain. Savina nodded steadily, her steel blue eyes scanning the control panel as she quickly took the captain's seat. Although she had just learned the skill book, it did not hinder her mastery of the Mimitaral piloting techniques and general spaceship control. Sheen and Vela took their seats at the auxiliary positions on either side, learning and familiarizing themselves with the new control interface. As soon as they stepped onto the cold metal deck of the Death Spiral, a communication came through. It was Parker. Connect. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, Parker's holographic image appeared beside him, with the background being the transport ship's bridge. The transport ship was docking with the Death Spiral. My friend, I have not failed you. I have secured 500 million star coins in cash, and the transport ship has arrived at the designated transfer airspace. His voice was slightly fatigued, but his eyes were exceptionally bright. Lu Ling sighed slightly. He knew this might be the last cash he could get from Juanbi, but it was fine. There were countless nobles in the empire, and taking a few billion from one family was enough. Raising such a large sum of cash took more effort than expected, utilizing multiple emergency funding channels within the family. Parker's tone was sincere. I apologize for keeping you waiting. It was not my intention. I hope you can understand. Lu Ling laughed heartily. Parker, no need to be formal. Your credibility with me is this. He gave a thumbs up. Parker breathed a sigh of relief. Grateful. It's good that you can understand. The Zhuangbei family values its friendship and cooperation with you, and will never compromise on commitments. At this moment, the sound of a completed airtight connection was heard. The heavy alloy hatch slid open, revealing the cargo hold of the Jian Dun transport ship. The scene was identical to the last time. 50 heavy metal containers, marked with the Zhuangbei family's eagle emblem and prominent star coin logo, were neatly stacked in the transport ship's cargo hold, each representing 10 million star coins in cash. Engineering machinery was in the process of handling the cargo. This was Parker's first time on the Death Vortex, and despite being the heir of the Zhuangbei family, accustomed to large starships, he couldn't help but be astonished by the scale and efficiency here. Under the cold metallic dome, the robotic arms operated precisely, transferring the last star coin container bearing the family emblem from the Jiandun to the designated isolation area. The throughput efficiency was truly impressive, Parker marveled, trying to shift his gaze away from those containers representing immense wealth and looking towards Lu Ling. My family's Jiandun-class transport ship is already one of the top cargo ships in the Dominion, but in front of your vessel, it seems so clumsy. The space utilization and logistics planning here far exceed my understanding. His words were half flattery, half genuine. The interior design of the Death Vortex had no unnecessary decorations, solely serving efficiency. Once all the star coin containers disappeared into the depths, Parker reluctantly withdrew his gaze. Even as an heir, spending billions in 2 days would still stir his heart. The task is complete, and I have obtained the navigation key for the Gravity Mirage well. I wonder if you have time in the next couple of days. Parker's voice lost some of its formality, gaining a more casual tone. I always have time. Just give me 2 minutes. Lu Ling smiled, and let Parker wait for 2 minutes as he stepped onto a hoverboard and dove into the cargo hold. Star coins could not be absorbed for even a moment. Otherwise, one could not feel at ease. 10 minutes later, he was already aboard Parker's exclusive luxury shuttle, of course. Not alone, as Dark Crow accompanied him. The space structure where the Gravity Mirage well was located was extremely special, wrapped in multiple gravitational tides and hidden energy vortices, with a high distortion coefficient, making conventional transitions impossible to reach or even detect. It was necessary to rely on specific key beacons for navigation, following an extremely secretive safe route for short-range transitions. He was indeed revealing a core secret of the Zhuangbei family. Dark Crow stood at Lu Ling's side, and Parker felt a sense of pressure. This guardian of yours exuded extraordinary presence. He has always been like this. Parker understood and instructed the maid to bring drinks. The Empire's transition technology was significantly lagging compared to Eve, with a vast gap in capabilities, often requiring tens of minutes to fly. And this time always needed to be filled with some activity. Therefore, regardless of the ship, such services were included, especially for nobles. Outside the shuttle's window, the Carthage starport grew increasingly distant, and professional voices came from the cockpit. The key beacon has been activated and is calibrating the transition parameters, Parker explained. We are about to enter the first segment of the guided transition. This path is a secure corridor meticulously charted at great cost by the family, and the outside world could never know of its existence. Lu Ling nodded, but secretly sent a communication to Zavina, synchronize coordinates, maintain stealth, follow remotely. With a gentle hum and a light vibration, the shuttle vanished in a flash of light. 40 minutes later, the shuttle exited its transition. Outside the viewport was the vast emptiness, 168 astronomical units away from a certain starport, with distant starlight twinkling far away. However, the sight ahead made Lu Ling's gaze sharpen. What first caught the eye were 12 massive defense platforms arranged in a circular formation. Each platform stretched several kilometers along its long axis, integrating countless turrets, heavy laser arrays, and missile silos into a comprehensive defensive structure, their cold metal armor reflecting a chilling light under the distant stars. Passing through the outer defense perimeter, the interior revealed an extremely busy industrial logistics center space station, approximately 30 kilometers long. Dozens of cargo docks and refining platforms clung to the station like a beehive, with thick energy conduits and material transport pipelines intertwined among them. At least 30 specially modified large industrial transport ships were docked there, their hulls clearly emblazoned with the family's eagle emblem. Lu Ling counted about 50 total docking spots. Further away was a strategic command fortress, also surrounded by 50 docking spots of various sizes. Four enormous vessels quietly hovered at the outer edge of the fortress, their elongated hulls featuring iconic twin-mounted 1,600mm massive turrets and heavy armor, unmistakably identifying them as Martyr-class battleships. These were the main warships of the noble navy, powerful symbols and mobile fortresses. In addition, there were over 40 ships of various types including corvettes, destroyers, and cruisers forming an elite patrol fleet, some docked for repairs and others patrolling the perimeter. The entire base was shrouded in an atmosphere of high alert and vigilance. As they approached the defense circle, they were immediately subjected to strict identification checks, with several high-intensity scanning beams enveloping the shuttle. The communication channel relayed cold, formal inquiries from the guarding fleet. Parker personally conducted the identity verification and entered the precious electronic certificate for the navigation key. After multiple confirmations, a defense platform slowly moved aside, revealing a passage entrance protected by an energy barrier. The shuttle gradually entered the heart of this steel fortress. As you can see, Parker pointed at the busy scene outside, his tone filled with pride. This is the economic cornerstone of my autonomous territory, and the security level is the highest. The guarding fleet operates independently of the naval hierarchy. Lu Ling understood. This meant that the family effectively had nearly 3 full fleets, with one of them constantly protecting the gravitational well. As the shuttle crossed numerous defenses and slowly entered the core area of the base, even Lu Ling's pupils widened. There, suspended in the air, was an enormous pure white rectangular artificial device, its structure simple and devoid of any unnecessary interfaces. At this moment, the front of the rectangular device is slowly opening, revealing a swirling energy vortex that emits a soft white light. A large transport ship seems to have received a command and is gradually entering the vortex. What is this? Lu Ling couldn't help but ask. Parker replied solemnly, the entrance to the gravitational mirage well, also known as the precursor's legacy crystal tube. Crystal tube? The technology to manufacture crystal tubes is unique to a certain empire and can only be constructed by the Imperial engineering fleet with the approval of distinguished nobles in the lower house. A considerable portion of the enormous taxes we pay each year is allocated for the maintenance of this tube. Lu Ling gazed at the white rectangular device and the vortex within, his eyes deep in thought. We need to queue. Parker's tone was apologetic. It seemed that here, his status as the first heir had no effect. Lu Ling indicated that it was fine, but his attention was soon drawn to something else. Not far from the crystal tube, there was a relatively smaller, more complex auxiliary device. It consisted of multiple rotating crystal columns and dark purple energy rings, and its design seemed out of place compared to the surrounding Imperial technology, yet it bore similarities to the crystal tube. Clearly, this was also a precursor relic, though it had not been activated and had remained dormant for many years. The term precursor weighed heavily on Lu Ling for the first time. He couldn't tell if it was the precursor civilization that was advanced or if the Eve system technology was superior. Parker noticed Lu Ling's gaze lingering, and a subtle smile appeared on his face. This is another core facility that complements the Mirage well, involving the highest level of Imperial secrets. He paused, then suddenly shifted his tone to half joking, half serious. Unless one day you are willing to become a true insider with us. For instance, marrying one of my sisters or younger sisters, at that point, all secrets will naturally be revealed to you. Are there any who are 18? Parker's gentle face showed surprise for the first time. So you have this preference. But unfortunately, my youngest sister is already 56. If you don't mind. I have over 30 daughters, each one virtuous and beautiful. Let's just stick to calling each other by our names, shall we? Lu Ling responded. We are about to enter. Please fasten your safety devices. Parker watched as the green light on the crystal tube illuminated, just as the shuttle slowly approached the white vortex. The Astro-class ship arrived smoothly, gliding into the heavily guarded fortress, with no fluctuations or anomalies detected on the base's sensors or radar. Like a ghost, it went unnoticed and undetected. Chapter 130, Death Space Astro-class, Lonely Brave No. 1 Bridge. Capturing analyzable abnormal signals, Sheen reported, her fingertips swiftly gliding over the holographic interface, attempting to decode the peculiar waveforms captured by the sensors. Lu Ling had her study archaeology, surveying, electronic decryption principles, and scientific principles. On the captain's seat, Zavina's gaze followed the shuttle that had just vanished into the energy vortex, making arrangements. Mark the position, we will follow it in. The top priority is to ensure the captain's safety. The shuttle penetrated the soft and stable white energy vortex, as if passing through a viscous membrane of water. As the entrance of the Mirage crystal tube closed at the rear, the readings of all conventional sensors fluctuated violently for a moment before returning to normal. A strange liquid light swept past the hull. In the next moment, the sight before Lu Ling made him hold his breath. Was this a space of death? The physical laws here seemed to be utterly different from those of the conventional universe. A ghostly blue glow permeated the entire space, unlike any visible light source. More like the very background of space itself, as if liquid energy was slowly flowing, breathing. Beneath this ethereal blue sky lay an even more spectacular scene. Countless asteroids appeared to be seized by an invisible force, quietly floating in the void, forming an extremely broad mining belt. Lu Ling saw numerous crystal stones, dry burnt rocks, and occasionally dark red stones that seemed to still be burning inside. As the shuttle delved deeper, he also spotted water boron, or with murky colors and grayish-white stripes, along with more common limestone and syenite. The mining barge from Zwanjibai was using robust mechanical arms and precise cutting beams to extract value from this mining belt. Upon reaching the center, the temperature suddenly dropped, and a layer of ice mist appeared on the porthole. The automatic heating activated, causing the ice mist to slowly dissipate. Huge ice belts undulated like mountains, floating here, with pure white glaze ice, light blue ice crystals, and massive coarse blue ice drifting in the void. These cosmic ice ores, formed by gas molecules adhering to silicate dust particles, were being slowly mined by ice platforms using condensation arms and microwave melting machines. After crossing the barriers of shattered stars and glaciers, the ethereal blue glow of the space became increasingly intense, almost materializing. A massive fullerene gas cloud floated between the mining belts. Fullerenes are solid-state molecules that can be found in natural cosmic gas clouds. Their unique structure makes them one of the most valuable materials in the human world. Fullerene-based raw material technology has been applied in electronics, propulsion, and engineering construction, and it is also used in the manufacture of superalloys and high-temperature weapon systems. Collecting them requires extremely precise electric field confinement technology, otherwise, they would disperse at the slightest touch. Beneath the gas cloud, Lu Ling finally saw the true form of the mirage crystal veins. Initially, he thought they would be like traditional mining belts, but upon seeing them for real, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. This was not an ordinary mine, but rather sheets of smooth, mirror-like blue glass, and Lu Ling finally understood where the pervasive blue light came from. The shuttle slowly came to a stop, 200 kilometers away from the massive blue glass pieces. "Sir, this is the safety line. We cannot proceed further," Parker said apologetically. "These living mirage crystals are extremely fragile. Any macro object or electromagnetic field would disrupt their stability. Does that mean we can't use any machinery or drones for mining?" "Yes," Parker nodded, gesturing for him to look back. The transport ship that had entered before them was slowly approaching, coming to a halt about 20 kilometers from the shuttle. Its belly opened, and instead of mining equipment, a row of translucent biological pods extended from it. Lu Ling's pupils contracted slightly. With his current genetics, he could naturally see what was inside that pod. He never expected that it contained living people, their surfaces shimmering with a faint pulsating glow. They were the nurturing and crystal harvesting individuals. Parker spoke with reverence. They were clones modified with special genes, their nervous systems extremely sensitive, and their bodies covered with biological materials that could interact positively with the crystal. They were also the family's most precious assets. The pods seemed to have completed their charging, propelled by weak biological pulses, like glowing jellyfish in the deep sea, shooting in rows towards the expanse of blue glass. There were tens of thousands of them. At a distance of several hundred meters from the massive blue glass, the pod stopped. Immediately, the pod doors opened like blooming petals, and one by one, the crystal harvesting individuals floated out. Through the magnified images from the shuttle, it was clear to see their gray-white biological armor closely fitted against their skin, looking like a combination of some kind of keratin and flexible bone, flowing with a faint sheen, completely isolating any stray electromagnetic signals that might arise inside. The small biological thrusters on their backs trembled slightly, exhaling nearly invisible ion streams to help them maintain an extremely precise and stable hovering posture. One of the crystal harvesting individuals slowly raised their arms to touch the blue glass. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. Gradually, a point of brilliant silver and gold light began to appear at the center of the ripples, slowly condensing and growing larger. The formerly calm and mirror-like surface of the blue glass vein began to ripple slightly, with the ethereal blue light converging like water flowing towards a point, signaling the start. Parker whispered, his tone low as if afraid the sound would penetrate the vacuum and disturb the ritual. He was extracting the living crystal. Lu Ling observed that the crystal harvesting individual's body began to tremble slightly. Even from a distance and through the observation screen, he could feel the immense mental load. The sheen of the biological armor around them accelerated, clearly working hard to maintain stability. The process was extremely slow. The point of silver and gold light, like a star in gestation, took nearly 10 minutes to gradually coalesce into a fist-sized, irregular crystal prototype, still connected by many fine strands. The crystal harvesting individual slowly retreated, each strand breaking one by one. At the moment all the strands snapped, the fist-sized crystal suddenly retracted its glow, instantly solidifying from a flowing energy state into a tangible, softly radiant blue mineral. The blue glass vein in front of it only dimmed slightly, quickly returning to its original state. The crystal harvesting individual began to float back towards the pod. It was a successful crystal harvest. Parker let out a gentle breath, clearly having held his breath in concentration just now. Once the living crystal detached from its body, it would turn into dead crystal, at which point neither mechanical transport nor electromagnetic fields would affect its stability. The dead crystals we collected would be packaged for statistics and then directly transported to the Imperial Mint Fleet of Colossi. They will be responsible for transporting the crystal to the Empire's only 3 pioneer mints, where it will be refined into a more stable currency. A mature crystal miner can only perform this type of mining 2 to 3 times in a 24-hour period. Lu Ling watched the returning capsules, feeling a stirring in his heart. This beautiful, yet deadly blue vein held such high-risk, high-tech manual labor behind each currency. It gave him a more intuitive understanding of the value represented by this currency. As the shuttle began its return, Lu Ling also told Zavina not to approach that crystal mining area. It seemed that this was not the pure path of the Empire. Lu Ling spoke slowly. Parker, hearing Lu Ling's words, showed a hint of barely noticeable surprise in his golden eyes. which soon turned into appreciation as he gently swirled the liquid in his glass. Pure? I initially thought so too, Parker repeated, as if savoring its multiple meanings. My lord, you discussed this with my father at a family banquet. The Empire values purity because it represents order, control, and inheritance. He shifted his tone. However, in reality, applied science seeks ultimate efficiency. His gaze turned to the busy crystal miners outside the window, and his tone became pragmatic. The technology of miners is currently the method with the lowest risk and highest controllability found by the Empire. Just as you mentioned before, this does not deviate from purity, my lord. It precisely proves the inclusiveness and practicality of human wisdom. We can always find the most suitable way, whether it is biological energy, mechanical energy, or any other force, to incorporate it into our great endeavors. As for the pioneers, Parker shrugged, speaking in a relaxed tone as if discussing distant legends. Scholars in the Empire always have countless speculations, but the fact is that the pioneers left behind this great gift. And ultimately, it is us who understand, control, and harness it for humanity. That is what truly matters, isn't it? Understood. Lu Ling nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping again across the starry sky, filled with endless wealth and danger. The cabin fell into a brief silence. Only the low hum of the shuttle's engine could be heard. Parker did not interrupt, patiently waiting, knowing that this mysterious guest was weighing some significant decisions. As the shuttle was about to exit the crystal well space, Lu Ling's calm voice broke the silence. Young Master Parker, it is a pity that the Zhuan Bei is guarding such a treasure trove, but is limited by mining efficiency. Parker's spirit lifted. Are you referring to the crystal miners? Due to the uniqueness of the crystal mine, the efficiency of miners is restricted, but it has not yet reached the maximum mining capacity. It is just that cultivating miners is extremely difficult, and the Empire has not delegated the technology for miner cultivation, resulting in very limited output. Many autonomous regions and provinces are in urgent need of them. To this day, Zhuanbei has only accumulated 500,000 miners. Lu Ling waved his hand. No, that is not it. He himself did not fully understand the crystal mine. He would study it further when he had his own territory. But that was still too far in the future. Parker was not disappointed. He quickly reacted. Are you referring to this rich mining area? Exactly. Lu Ling nodded, his gaze sweeping over the busy industrial ships. The reserves and mining scale of conventional minerals like crystal stones, burnt rocks, and ice or belts were equally impressive. If their efficiency could be improved, the returns would be significant. A glimmer of understanding flashed in Parker's eyes as he reclined in the soft seat, looking out the porthole. To be honest, every inch of this mining area, every piece of ore, is owned and operated by the Zhuangbai Council. Even my father, as the head of the Zhuangbai family, cannot unilaterally designate any area permanently to anyone outside the council. This is the fundamental law of our family. He candidly laid out the boundaries of his authority, without any hint of evasion or ambiguity. However, he did not stop there. A hint of camaraderie and shrewdness emerged in his tone as he continued, but beyond the law, there are also pathways. The core demands of the council are simply profit sharing and family prosperity. Parker lowered his voice slightly, with a tone suggesting he was offering a proposal. If you could provide a mining plan from the Earth Federation that significantly enhances the efficiency of this mining area, then this achievement and the substantial new profits it generates will become the most powerful bargaining chip. His gaze became bright and meaningful at that time. I could use this as a reason to propose to the council that a portion of the enhanced yield area be granted to you in the name of strategic cooperation. I see. Lu Ling nodded. Just then, Zavina relayed a message. Analysis of the anomalous space is complete. We have discovered a dormant wormhole here. A dormant wormhole? Out of caution, Lu Ling instructed Zavina to note the coordinates and then return. The gains from this trip were already substantial. He needed to adjust his development plans immediately, as recklessly exploring new targets posed too great a risk. Moreover, making money was the most important task now. Zavina, proceed to this coordinate and keep an eye on it. Chapter 131. Agricultural Colony Satellite Number 72, 63rd Star Region of the Pasha Empire, Kashi Constellation, Dust Zone on the border of the Zhuangbai Autonomous Region. Interstellar dust floated like a veil, swallowing the faint light of distant stars. In this dark zone, where even starlight seemed stingy, the outline of a ship emerged. It was the Night Orchid. It had long lost the grandeur of its days as a flagship, with its hull covered in scorched marks and deep craters from kinetic shells. The armor and structural components on the left side torn apart, leaving only half the hull exposed, with bare wires occasionally sparking. Each intermittent thrust was extremely unstable, as if it could completely disintegrate at any moment. 4 days ago, Feng Ling was still the formidable commander of the Pirate Alliance, leading over 60 pirate warships from Blood Alliance, Black Sail, and Villain Gang to besiege the Graveyard Base, vowing to eliminate Rachel and divide the legacy of the Red Devil. Little did they know that all of this was a trap set by the Zhuangbai long ago. The situation changed in an instant. Now, she has become a lost soul, hunted down by former allies like prey, chased from the main star region to the chaotic dust belt at the edge of the Zhuangbai Autonomous Region. Inside the bridge, the lights are dim, with only a few screens flickering softly, illuminating Feng Ling's weary face, though her eyes remain sharp. Her orange-hued gaze is fixed on the tactical star map, which shows not only the complex gravitational turbulence and dust clouds, but also 6 red points that cling to her like a festering wound. 1 cruiser from the Blood Alliance, 2 destroyers from the Black Sail, and 3 light frigates pieced together by the villain's gang. Engine overheating. Reactor output is continuously declining. The portside thruster is offline. We no longer have a damage control team. Structural integrity at 47 remaining. The portside B3B10 compartment has completely lost pressure. Bad news keeps pouring in. On the star map, the 6 red points begin to spread out, preparing for a final encirclement. Report. Fires in cargo compartments B14 and B13. All supplies are burned. At that moment, Vance's voice comes through the communication channel, tired and hoarse. Chief, the reactor has just been hit. The cooling system has failed. All the condensation pipes are destroyed. There's no saving it. I can hold on for at most half an hour. A failed cooling system means they can't suppress the heat, and the reactor could go nuclear at any moment. Despair fills the bridge. This fastest ship of the Empire cannot escape its doomed fate. Feng Ling suppresses her panic. Her gaze locked on a corner of the star map. There, almost buried under the dust cloud signals, is a red point marked with AgriHub 72 Breadbasket Zhuangbai Directly Controlled Agricultural Colony Satellite Number 72 Restricted Area. Just 260,000 kilometers away. A distance between life and death. A crazy plan instantly forms in her mind. Communications officer. Feng Ling's voice suddenly rises. Logging into the Zhuangbai Border Fleet's public emergency distress channel with the identity of Grey Weasel 606, she repeats the call 3 times. Under pirate attack, power lost. Requesting emergency rescue. Chief. The communications officer is incredulous. Calling for help from Zhuangbai? It's akin to walking into a trap. Execute the order. She immediately turns to the navigation officer. Calculate the optimal launch trajectory. Download it to me. Target. Breadbasket. Abandon all non-essential weight. Prepare everyone for evacuation to the assault craft. The navigation officer immediately understands Feng Ling's crazy plan and can't help but gasp. Ever since following Feng Ling, every day has been a life or death gamble. Vance. Here. Vance's voice comes through, accompanied by the hissing sounds of the engine room and firefighting efforts. Prepare for reactor self-destruction. Countdown 10 minutes. Understood. Chief. Vance's tone is resolute. Everyone, head to the hangar immediately. As the distress signal penetrates the dust cloud, the pirate fleet behind erupts into chaos. She has gone mad, asking Zhuangbai for help. Quick, sink her. We can't let her fall into Zhuangbai's hands. Accelerate. However, the Blood Alliance's cruiser, seeing this, secretly begins preparing its jump engine. What a joke. Revenge is one thing, but they are not here to play games. By the time they catch up to Feng Ling, the defensive fleet will have arrived. What is the point of going down together? At this moment, the bridge of the Yangtze is completely deserted, with only the photon coprocessor installed by Lu Ling quietly operating. The Black Sails and the pirates from the villain gang are charging like enraged hornets, accelerating recklessly to encircle, their firepower becoming increasingly dense and frenzied. The Blood Alliance is about to escape. Those cowards. The battleship has already been taken down by Feng Ling, and now the opportunity for revenge is right in front of them, yet they choose to flee. Useless husband. I must take revenge on that villain leader, even if it means going down together. You're insane too. The Yangtze shakes violently under the bombardment, the holographic screens on the bridge flickering continuously, flashing red warnings. But it still stubbornly moves towards the direction of the breadbasket. Time passes slowly, each second feeling like a century. In the shadow of the Yangtze's belly, the deck hatches slowly open. Now is the time. Everyone abandon ship. Eject. 6 assault boats shoot out like arrows, vanishing into the darkness in an instant. They do not activate any lights or signals, only the engine's exhaust flames, which grow more distant until they disappear into the dark. This is undoubtedly an extremely dangerous gamble. In the vast universe, 260,000 kilometers away, the location of colony satellite number 72 is completely invisible. If they lose their direction, it will mean eternity. The pirates are completely unaware of this, just as they are about to deliver the final blow to the Yangtze. A cold, all-frequency official warning swept across the airspace. This is the 7th Border Patrol Fleet of the Zhuangbai Autonomous Territory. All ships immediately cease fire and shut down weapon systems. Repeat. Cease fire immediately. Submit to inspection. Any acts of resistance will be viewed as provocation against the sovereignty of Zhuangbai. against the sovereignty of the Empire. In the void, 3 authoritative jump flashes almost simultaneously light up. 3 Nebula Shark-class destroyers adorned with the Zhuangbai Eagle emblem leap into position, sliding towards the center of the battlefield. Their cold gun barrels instantly lock onto the 6 pirate ships. However, the Blood Alliance-S cruiser has already completed its jump and flashes away. The Black Sails destroyers are forced to cease fire, yet the villain gang, disregarding everything, fires one last shot at the Yangtze. Boom. This strike ignited the reactor, turning the battle-worn destroyer into a brilliant fireball. It was the villain gang's doing. We are not in league with them. We didn't fire. The captain of the Black Sails hurriedly distanced himself from the situation. Zhuangbai's 3 destroyers immediately target the 3 frigates of the villain gang. Concentrate fire. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 frigates are reduced to ashes. The Black Sails do not dare to act recklessly, because in the next moment, 2 cruisers and a battlecruiser from the Zhuangbai border fleet jump out and arrive on the battlefield. This is overwhelming order and power. The Zhuangbai Navy quickly captures all the pirates and sends personnel to take control of 2 Black Sails destroyers, beginning to turn them towards the border Navy outpost, where preliminary trials will take place. No one noticed that in the void, a ship witnessed everything, including the escape of Feng Ling and the agricultural colonial satellite number 72. After the border defense fleet made its jump, the Astro-class vessel slowly approached the wreckage of the Night Orchid, its cloaking disengaged. On the bridge, search signals were detected. The signals were identified, and the characteristics matched perfectly. Recovery operations commenced. A beam of light shot out, precisely retrieving the core jump engine of the spacecraft from the wreckage. Despite the violent explosion, the core device remained intact. Following the captain's orders, this item must not fall into the hands of the Empire. Zavina confirmed the recovery list. Although the inertial stabilizer and photon coprocessor were damaged, she still chose to recover them. The pristine Astro-class vessel slowly vanished, and darkness once again enveloped the area. Chapter 132. Undercurrents. More than 10 minutes later, in the deep darkness far from the explosion's disturbance, Feng Ling, in the cockpit, caught a glimpse of the Night Orchid finally transforming into a silent, expanding fireball before quickly disintegrating. She gradually centered the control stick. The moment the reactor was hit, destruction was inevitable. Another 30 minutes passed, and according to the preset plan, she lifted the radio silence and opened the signal. A buzzing noise filled her earpiece, followed by 2 brief response signals. Transmission trajectory established, automatic navigation engaged. Feng Ling began operating, her fingertips swiftly sliding across the control panel, sending out the glide path data to AgriHub 72, the agricultural colonial satellite. Lacking mothership support, the communication relay power of the assault vessel severely diminished. With a signal transmission range of less than 200 kilometers, this meant that the other 3 assault vessels had drifted far off course during their escape and could not receive this sole map to survival. In the cosmos, a slight deviation could lead to eternal loss. In the cramped crew cabin at the rear, the surviving confidants were packed in, the air thick with the oppressive weight of having survived a disaster, and no one spoke. Vance looked through the small porthole towards the wreckage of the Night Orchid. His expression complex. 260,000 kilometers, a distance that felt utterly despairing. The assault vessel could only accelerate to a maximum speed of 2,000 meters per second. Exceeding this speed would mean it could not stop. This was a cold journey lasting 37 hours. Activating the low-power mode, all non-essential energy consumption was shut down except for life support systems and basic navigation modules. Feng Ling's voice echoed in the encrypted channel, calm and unruffled. The assault vessel's engine was completely shut off, gliding silently like a dormant meteor. Time passed slowly, and everyone breathed cautiously. Each second was accompanied by a minute decrease in the oxygen reserve percentage displayed on the screen, and the chilling cold as the cabin temperature gradually approached the survival threshold. Meanwhile, on the distant Carthage star, by the shores of Lake Khalifa, Parker watched as Lu Ling and Dark Crow disappeared into the entrance before ordering the pilot to set off. At the moment the shuttle lifted off, a slight vibration came from the encrypted communication bracelet on his wrist, and Claude's calm voice sounded. "Sir, the stage is set. The Night Orchid has been confirmed destroyed, and the 7th Fleet has cleared the scene as planned. Subsequent arrangements are complete." Parker's expression remained unchanged. "Release Rachel." "Yes." "Wait." Parker's golden pupils gazed out at the bustling city through the porthole, suddenly recalling something. Since Blackwater Bay was no longer valuable, the cleanup plan should be initiated as well. After this, I want the word pirate to no longer exist in Zhuanbei's dictionary. Understood. As the shuttle soared into the clouds, the vibrant city was obscured, and Parker's gaze was unfathomable, as if he had pierced through the clouds. A few seconds later, communication resumed. This time it was his father, Count Clurin. The voice came through the encrypted channel. revealing no discernible emotion but carrying an invisible pressure. Parker, Senator Jonas just contacted me again. His patience is wearing thin. Father, please inform the senator that by tomorrow at the latest, he will have results. Parker provided a definite time frame. Clurin pondered for a moment. How is the investigation into the connections behind the Silverlight family's inheritance going? Parker did not answer directly but instead asked, Father, I want to ask you a question first. Speak. If the value of the Silverlight inheritance is an order of magnitude greater than what we currently know, or even more, should we still hand it over to Senator Jonas? No. Clurin did not hesitate in the slightest. The communication ended. Parker looked at the timestamp flashing on the bracelet. A slight smile curling at the corners of his mouth. Change course, head to the starport. Earlier, in the study of the castle by Halifa Lake, Lu Ling stood in the center. The dungeon was being converted into a laboratory, and he had temporarily chosen this location for summoning. With multiple experiences, he had roughly figured out some of the patterns. Marine Corps Soldier, unit price 200,000 ISK, purchase quantity, 1 unit. Confirm payment, 200,000 ISK, payment successful. The item has been stored in the hangar. Retrieve, please select retrieval location, current position, confirm retrieval, neural synchronization protocol loading. Loyalty brand injection complete. Lu Ling could only draw the Marine Corps one by one. Religious belief was a double-edged sword that needed to be handled with care. But sometimes, luck was something quite mystical. As the light and shadow had not yet fully stabilized, a deep and fervent voice rang out. For Her Majesty the Queen, Imperial Cuirassiers, ready for your orders, Marshal. A dark golden figure stood tall, this time holding a uniquely designed double-bladed battle axe. Lu Ling let out a soft breath. Got it, Emma. Shadow Raven. Lu Ling called out, and Shadow Raven immediately stepped into the study. The powered armor seemed welded on, inseparable from the belief. Fortunately, although the castle appeared ancient, its structure was built from high-strength materials. The several-ton weight echoed in the corridor without causing any tremors. Incorporate into your squad. Understood. The Dark Crow saluted, and the newly appeared Emma Marine immediately turned around to follow him as heavy footsteps gradually faded away in the corridor. Lu Ling began the second summoning. With flickering light and shadow, another dark golden figure appeared, and the fervent slogan echoed through the laboratory once again. For Her Majesty the Queen. Dark Crow. Lu Ling instinctively shouted. Sindarin walked in, showing no signs of surprise at the sudden appearance of the figure. Since Parker had gifted this batch of artificial beings to Lu Ling, their sole purpose was to serve the new master. The emotions of the artificial beings were thin, devoid of kinship, and loyalty had been ingrained in their genetic foundation. Of course, in terms of absolute effectiveness, this genetic loyalty was far inferior to the loyalty brand. Captain, the Dark Crow team has already left. Prepare 4 rooms, numbered A, C, G, M. Lu Ling immediately commanded. Yes. Lu Ling began the third summoning. For Her Majesty the Queen. Another identical slogan rang out. Lu Ling was unfazed, as long as the arrangements were in place. He preferred all of them to be such valiant soldiers. Although their individual strength was insignificant compared to the battleship's massive cannons, tasks still needed to be carried out by people. Assign them to Room A. Yes. This process repeated, summoning 10 times in a row, resulting in a complete set of Emma Empire Marines without exception. Not bad. As long as no Mimitar people appeared, this batch of summons had not gone astray. Lu Ling began to grant permissions to Aura. All these new Marines would be incorporated under Dark Crow's command for unified management and training. While temporarily revoking the training officer's authority, Lu Ling had already decided that training the Blood Sharks would be handed over to a more competent instructor. Just as he finished processing this new troop strength and prepared to continue summoning laborers, a secure communication from Savina came through, clearly reporting a key piece of intelligence. Captain, the data matches with Aura's. Feng Ling has successfully infiltrated the target colonial satellite. Lu Ling's gaze shifted slightly, and a slightly sinister smile appeared on his lips. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. Is that so? Come back, bring the Dark Crow team. This woman, I must keep alive. Adding another team of combat-specialized Imperial fanatics to Dark Crow would make capturing Feng Ling a breeze. However, since Feng Ling was entangled in too much, with the inheritance of the Silverlight family in her hands, Lu Ling decided to personally oversee the operation, of course, from the ship. Now, he had the strength and resources to do so. Chapter 133. The tide hundreds of kilometers away from the fortress by Lake Halifa, on the golden coastline of the continent, stands the most renowned resort paradise of Carthage, the Dream Bay Crystal Sea City. The entire city resembles a diamond necklace embedded along the azure coastline. Towering, streamlined skyscrapers made of one-way translucent crystal materials refract countless dazzling rays of light under the sun. Floating gardens hover between the buildings, with lush alien flowers cascading like waterfalls. reflecting beautifully with the crystal-clear blue waters below. Among its famous sites, none is more renowned than Silver Sand Bay. This is a private crescent-shaped beach stretching for several kilometers, where the sand is not naturally formed but rather polished from dried coral at a nano level, with a silvery sheen that sparkles. Walking on it feels delicate and cool, and in any light, it subtly shimmers with a layer of soft luster. This earthly paradise is the private territory of Elder Rani of Zhuangbai. At this moment, in the center of Silver Sand Bay, a glass platform hovers above the sea. Rani is lazily reclining in a lounge chair woven from the silk of a certain large-eyed spider from a distant planet. Since his birth, he has shown no interest in the dark universe and has never left Carthage. Therefore, his genetic optimization is mainly focused on longevity, resulting in a slightly plump physique. He is wearing only a pair of blue swim trunks, looking quite different from his appearance at the Batik Manor. This is his backyard. However, he has grown tired of the beautiful azure sea view. In front of him, a holographic screen hovers, displaying financial data from Carthage and even Zhuangbai. Occasionally, with a swipe of his finger, he completes a transaction involving an astonishing amount of credit points. A satisfied smile forming on his lips as millions of credit points flow into his account. The true scenery of this stunning beach and pool is the dozens of beautiful women, each with their own unique charm, which is one of Rani's hobbies. Some swim like mermaids in the sparkling infinity pool, while others lazily lie on the beach, allowing an intelligent sunbathing device to apply fragrant skincare essence to them. A few gather in small groups, holding glasses filled with sparkling liquid, whispering and laughing, their glances occasionally drifting toward Rani at the center of the platform. These beauties all possess excellent genes and are part of Rani's collection. Paradise is nothing more than this. As for the stars and the sea, Rani dismisses them. At this moment, a mature woman in a bikini, elegantly maneuvering a drone, stops in front of the platform. Her sun-kissed skin glows healthily under the sunlight as she approaches with long strides. She is Rani's housekeeper. Sir, someone has taken the anonymous bounty at Blackwater Bay. Rani's fingers continue to glide over the data stream, his golden eyes lazily fixed on the numbers dancing on the holographic screen. Is the authenticity confirmed? It can be confirmed. The timing matches. Only then did Rani close the holographic screen and let her in. The housekeeper immediately raised her wrist device, and an audio message popped up. The other party's voice was deliberately disguised, rough and lacking any respect. Pay first. Rani waved his hand, showing no concern. The housekeeper promptly followed instructions and transferred 100,000 star coins to an anonymous account. Speak. His name is Lu Ling. He suddenly appeared 6 months ago and is the chief mechanic of the Crimson Demon Red Army. Crimson Demon? What is that? Rani frowned, clearly unfamiliar with it. Space pirates? Yes. What an unpleasant name. Rani lost interest. Get to the point. He is a citizen of the Earth Federation. The words Earth Federation struck like thunder, instantly freezing the indifferent arrogance on Rani's face. The golden pupils slightly contracted as he stared sharply at the audio interface, as if his gaze could penetrate the disguise and reveal the truth behind it. Could you repeat that? The Earth Federation? What a galactic joke. Absolutely true. The Red Devil Chief Rachel said so, and he has a deep connection with your Joao Bay. Loney pondered the timestamp for a moment, already believing about 70 to 80% of it. However, even so, he still found it hard to believe his ears, or perhaps he was unwilling to believe it. The Earth Federation? No wonder that Parker guy. He mused, then spoke again. 1 million star coins. Bring Rachel to see me. Not possible. I have never lacked for soldiers. You can have this million first. Can you do it? My strength is insufficient. Then I'll give you a D-level person. Can you do it? Yes. The communication was cut off. Loney suddenly felt that the beach view he had seen countless times was particularly pleasing at this moment, and his mood instantly brightened. Parker. Oh, Parker, you really hit it well, but I'm not going to hold it against you for taking money from the treasury. However, the cake you bring back should be shared with everyone, right? Then, he beckoned to the butler and instructed, go arrange it. Within 2 minutes. I want all the information on that Rachel character, leave no traces. He might be a pawn of Parker looking for a suitable opportunity to bring him to see me. I'll check right away. Wait. The female butler paused and looked back. Come here, no rush. I want to learn some ancient Earth languages, any kind will do. Hearing this, the female butler suddenly smiled charmingly. Yes, master. I just passed the 15th level certification in ancient English yesterday. Oh, is that so? Loney raised an eyebrow. Then I must properly test your learning results. How do you read the phrase 15th level again? Oh damn. Happy heavens. AgriHub 72 breadbasket. Joao Bay directly under agricultural colony satellite number 72. The artificial dusk light poured through the wide viewing window, softly illuminating the control room of the air cultivation farm in the 7th district, LK19. The air was filled with the faint sweet and fishy scent of nutrient solution mixed with the fresh aroma from plant leaves transpiring, combined with the gentle breeze sent by the circulation system, which was strictly controlled for temperature and humidity, creating an almost realistic pastoral tranquility. Sila, or rather, he should be called Darshkaf, was currently standing in front of the main control console, focused on scanning rows of crop readings. The screen displayed dozens of growth parameters for vertical air cultivation columns, nutrient solution concentration, light intensity, carbon dioxide levels, tissue moisture content, and so on. Everything was operating smoothly within the optimal range. As the newly appointed leader of the air-cultivated crop optimization team, his work was not exactly interesting. In fact, it was quite tedious. The automated agricultural system of Joao Bay was already highly mature, with few areas requiring manual intervention. His position resembled that of a senior overseer and troubleshooter. Commissioner Koff, the stomatal conductivity of the Sunshine Sweet Orange in Zone B7 is slightly abnormal. The system suggests making minor adjustments to the light cycle. A young assistant's voice came through the communicator, instinctively respectful towards the new team leader. As a Level 7 technical specialist on this vast agricultural satellite, he was already considered a mid-level technician, with the maximum level for specialists being only 10. Understood. Adjust to a Level 5 increment first. If the issue persists, notify me. Sila's voice carried a rare enthusiasm as his fingers swiftly glided over the control panel, confirming the instructions. Got it. Sila gazed out at the lush green fields, feeling an immense sense of relief. It seemed as if he was destined to be here, dealing with these delicate crops, rather than fighting for his life in the dirty corridors of the debris belt with a pulse magnetic railgun. He was exhausted. Over the past few days, he had gradually adapted to the routine of the breadbasket. Living in a single room in B14 with a view of a corner of Central Park, eating standard meals produced by the colonial satellite, and wearing a gray-blue technician uniform. Commuting daily between the residential area and the work zone. He perfectly embodied the role of Darshkaf, a taciturn, technically skilled, somewhat reclusive, yet diligent agricultural specialist. He diligently studied relevant knowledge every day, and the identity he purchased with his inheritance had withstood initial scrutiny, even earning him brief praise from the sector supervisor for accurately predicting an early blight outbreak. However, this tranquility did not allow Sila to relax, especially today. On his way home, Sila observed closely. The patrol frequency in Cradle Town had clearly increased. Those security personnel in black uniforms with stern expressions appeared more frequently in the agricultural area, and their scanning devices no longer focused solely on the crops, but occasionally swept over the technicians at work. Additionally, there were communication restrictions. The delays for non-official communications across sectors had lengthened, and vague announcements in the public information flow about frequent activities in the external Dust Belt warned departments to pay attention to equipment safety. 5 years was a long time. Long enough to change a person's habits. Yet 5 years was also short enough that the shadows of the past still felt within reach. Sila felt a twinge of reluctance as he returned to his single room in B14, where he found a pulse handgun, 2 energy batteries, and a virtual mask sticker chip hidden in the ceiling. This mask could perfectly mimic a person's facial contours, expressions, and even subtle muscle movements. In the territory ruled by Zhuangbi, it was considered a high-level contraband item. The person it imitated was the technical supervisor who had smuggled him in. Sila had prepared thoroughly from the very beginning, leaving himself a way out. Chapter 134. The Ghost Behind in the Void. Less than 500 kilometers from the AgriHub 72 breadbasket colonial satellite, a piece of technology disguised as debris quietly flickered. In the next moment, a dark void illuminated by distant starlight was suddenly shattered by a violent flash that tore through space, revealing a menacingly designed cruiser, painted matte black, resembling a steel beast leaping from the abyss. Unlike its usual arrogance, it was now silent, with all external lights extinguished, including the engine. On the dark hull, traces of repairs from the past few days could be faintly seen, telling of the fierce battles it had endured. Inside the bridge, the lighting was dim. After a week, Rachel's body had nearly returned to its original state, though one side of her skin still showed an unhealthy dark red, and her small eyes held a restrained glow. Lucius and Rank stood on either side of her, communicating in hushed tones. Rachel issued commands, and the communications officer immediately operated on the public channel. After several seconds, an audio feed connected. Is it the puppy? Yes. The temporary access permit has been activated, and the ship's identity has been overridden to logistics vessel of the 7th Border Fleet, hull number 0733. It will dock at the AGR-7 transfer port. This permit is valid for 6 hours and has restricted activity zones, prohibiting proximity to the core agricultural dome, Cradle Town, and the port command area. The audio paused before adding a warning. This operation must capture the target discreetly. If an alarm or large-scale conflict is triggered, the permit will expire in half an hour, and the Zhuangbai border fleet will treat it as an intrusion. The communication was terminated. Discreetly, huh? Rachel glanced at Lucius, her eyes conveying an unspoken message. Think of something. My chief advisor. Lucius slightly bowed, his demeanor as usual. My lord, it is time to deploy the last pawn. Then use it, Rachel replied calmly. You and Rank each take a team, monitor the logistics port and drone platform, and I will wait in the maintenance passage below. Understood. Lucius left. Rank remained in place, watching the bridge doors slowly close, then turned to the people seated below the captain's chair, whispering to Rachel, Father, you suspect him. Suspect? Rachel sighed, fatigue creeping onto her brow. He has been one of Parker's people, inserted here 22 years ago. Then you don't kill him because Zhuangbai needs a visible leash. They only feel secure when someone is watching. Rachel looked at his biological son, whose sequence he could barely remember. A chubby hand pulled 2 thumb-sized metal boxes from his pocket and tossed them to Rank. Take these. Father, what are these? Blood amber. As long as the heart and brain are intact, it can keep one alive, Rachel said as he stood up. And Rank immediately helped him put on a nanobelt for his bulky frame. Those like them, lowly pirates, had no right to comprehensive genetic optimization. Such technology was monopolized by the nobility, and enhancing even a tiny value often cost millions, so naturally, they spent their money wisely. As for body shape, as long as one wasn't sick, more exercise was sufficient. Optimization was purely wasteful. The belt activated, emitting a faint glow, providing basic secondary protective armor. Rank also activated his equipment, following Rachel out of the bridge. Father, you are worried. Rank opened their encrypted private channel. Rachel did not answer directly. You've been lurking by Feng Ling for 10 years. Have you learned anything from her? Sorry, Father, my sister never trusted me. It seems that the exposure during the operation 3 years ago was the reason. It has been quite impressive to hide for so long. Rachel felt a twinge of melancholy. Reaching this point today is all thanks to her. But unfortunately, the universe doesn't sell regret pills. Father, you are now the strongest pirate of Zhuangbai, with everything in order above and below. Why regret? Rachel laughed heartily, her laughter echoing hollowly in the encrypted channel. Reinka. We have always been the dogs raised by Zhuangbai, doing the dirty work beautifully just to get a scrap of meat. Her voice lowered, carrying a chilling undertone. But this time it's different. Once the job is done, we will be the ones cooked. Reinka's pupils widened. Then can we still get away? Rachel clasped her hands behind her back and led Reinka into the elevator that passed through the deck. Is that guy Parker unable to catch Feng Ling? Asking us to catch her is merely to use us as bait, to lure out the big fish behind Feng Ling, someone who can stand against Zhuangbai. Is that someone we can provoke? Now that we're involved, no matter who wins in the end, pawns will die. I am unwilling. Reinka growled. Unwilling? Huh. Rachel's laughter was laced with sarcasm. She didn't know whether she was mocking him or herself. When have our lives ever truly been in our own hands? Father, we are pirates. At worst, we can leave Zhuangbai and the universe. Rachel interrupted him, her tone harsh. And then what? We might not even be able to get out of the Karasai Stargate. I am unwilling too, but just being unwilling is useless. The elevator ran smoothly, and the enclosed space fell into a dead silence. After a long pause, Rachel spoke again, her voice much lower and heavy with a sense of entrustment. Reinka, among my descendants, you are the only one left, along with Feng Ling and Greenleaf. If it really comes to that moment, I hope it's you who survives. You are young, not lacking in intelligence, just short on experience. In the future, think more about everything. He paused as if casually mentioning. I initially didn't realize how perilous this situation was until just now when Lucius reminded me perfectly that it was time to use that last hidden piece. I want to kill him. Reinka's killing intent surged. Him? Rachel snorted coldly. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped out, leaving behind a cold remark. He has been dead for a long time. Let us go? Just as Rachel's cruiser, the Great Devil, glided towards the AGR-7 docking port. On the other side of the breadbasket colonial satellite, in the darkness, 3 assault boats approached swiftly, their engines' faint glow flickering like candles. Inside the cockpit of the central assault boat, Feng Ling pressed her lips tightly together, her orange-red eyes fixed on the agricultural satellite ahead, which was growing closer and emanating a soft glow. It had been 37 hours, sleepless and unyielding, pushing her nerves to the limit. All personnel, switch to manual control. Activate the decoder. Signal covers the dust cloud background frequency band. Stick close to me. Prepare to enter the recognition blind spot. Feng Ling grasped the joystick, beginning to deviate from the course. The 3 assault boats narrowly navigated into the complex structure of the satellite's shadow face. Here, thick energy pipelines, abandoned support frames, and aging non-core modules were scattered about, the most easily overlooked shadow corners in the web of sensors. Strangely, at this moment in the monitoring control tower of the colonial satellite, everyone clearly saw the trajectory of the 3 uninvited guests through the massive panoramic windows and countless flashing screens. The new generation of high-precision identification system had been fully upgraded 2 days prior, with a 30 increase in detection range and a 15 boost in signal strength. The 3 white light spots were clearly visible on the tactical star map. Yet, the tower was eerily silent. There were no piercing intrusion alarms, no urgent orders for patrol boats to take off, and not even the routine identification inquiry signals were issued. The operators stared blankly at the screens, occasionally glancing at the man in the uniform of a certain Navy captain standing next to the command seat. 10 minutes ago, the highest level of silence order had been issued. The monitoring officer couldn't understand what those above were thinking, and he didn't dare to ask. This meant that, regardless of where these individuals came from, they would act as if they hadn't seen anything. Feng Ling was naturally unaware of this. All her attention was focused on the treacherous navigation ahead. The assault boat flew closely alongside the massive metal structure, utilizing its shadow to evade potential scanning as much as possible. The decoder continued to work, releasing chaotic signals simulating interstellar dust clouds, struggling uselessly. Wong's, report status. Fuel remaining 2, capacitor depleted, laser drill fully charged, reactor normal, oxygen remaining 6 minutes. Wang's voice came intermittently from the rear of the cabin. Good, slow down. The assault boat abruptly halted, its speed dropping sharply as it narrowly grazed the alloy exterior of the colonial satellite. Second gear slowed down. Lock onto target point. LK-19B exhaust outlet. Prepare to attach. The 3 assault boats suddenly dove downwards outside the pipeline, where a circular airlock door painted with LK-19B was faintly visible several thousand meters ahead. 2 seconds later, the assault boat attached itself to the alloy door like a leech, shooting out a hot laser-cutting beam from its abdomen. Activate the spacesuit. Hurry up. Faster. Everyone's nerves were stretched to the limit, with beads of sweat forming on their foreheads. Every second felt like a century, as if they could sense the patrol ship of a certain navy appearing at any moment behind them. Unbeknownst to them, in the void 300 meters behind them, in what seemed to be an empty darkness, an invisible frigate silently observed everything. The Astro-class frigate, equipped with cutting-edge stealth operational devices, was truly a ghost in both reality and various frequency radar signals. It coldly watched the entire process of Feng Ling and her group fleeing for their lives to the moment they attempted to infiltrate. Inside the bridge, the lighting was soft. Scanning complete. Target assault boat has attached to the LK-19B airlock door and is performing laser cutting operations, came Vela's voice. Activate the tractor beam and synchronize the launch of the Dark Crow team, said Shavina, her voice still clear and cold. Command confirmed. The moment the order was issued, a gravity generator, tractor beam, in the belly of the Astro activated, focusing its gravitational field towards Feng Ling's assault boat. For Feng Ling and others who were fully focused on the cutting operation inside the assault boat, the sudden change came without warning. What is happening? Out of control. An irresistible force suddenly seized the entire vessel, violently yanking it away from its attachment point. Just as the boat lost control and everyone was in shock, more than a dozen dark golden figures suddenly appeared from the void above. Dark Crow and his team used microthrusters to accurately dive down, their heavy-powered armor legs crashing down on the airlock's armored plate with a dull thud, leaving clear dents and instantly sealing off all escape routes. There's an ambush. Retreat. Feng Ling reacted swiftly, and without hesitation, she slammed open the hatch, attempting to leap into the airlock in search of a glimmer of hope thanks to the excellent performance of her nano-battle armor. However, as soon as she made her move, a dark golden figure had already arrived first. Dark Crow's speed exceeded the limits of her visual capture. And when Feng Ling finally reacted, she felt a tight grip around her neck. An armored iron hand had clamped down on her like a steel claw. The immense power instantly suppressed all kinetic output from her nano-battle armor, rendering her struggles futile. Soon, the others were captured in a similar fashion, as if they were chicks being grabbed by an eagle. The pulling beam began to rapidly contract and change, forming a closed gravitational bubble that enveloped Dark Crow, Feng Ling, and all the captives, smoothly dragging them back into the hangar deck of the Astro-class escort ship. As for the 3 abandoned assault boats, they were expelled from the gravitational field, floating away like garbage into the depths of the pipeline. From the moment of the attack to the settling of dust, it took only a few seconds. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the Oriole behind. On the tower monitor, the 3 assault boats still clung to the exterior armor of the colonial satellite like leeches, occasionally sparking with laser fire. Why is this door taking so long to cut? Should we just open it for them? This equipment is also inadequate. Chapter 135. The Wheel of Fortune turns inside the Astro-class hangar. A bone-chilling cold filled the air, and the floor was as smooth as a mirror. The moment the gravitational bubble dissipated, the sensation of weightlessness vanished. And as this group of red soldiers fell heavily onto the cold metallic deck, the first thing they felt was a suffocating silence. There were no reprimands, no torture, not even the noise of victors. Aside from the 10 dark golden-powered armor soldiers that seemed out of place, there was no one else. Dark Crow released his grip and threw Feng Ling onto the ground, but the invisible sense of oppression did not dissipate. He stood nearby, his crimson optical visor coldly scanning the collapsed, terrified captives as if observing insignificant ants. The strength of these individuals could not even be considered heretical, including the woman at his feet. They were all just a pile of defective products waiting to be dealt with. The soldiers surrounded them, religious runes flowing across their dark golden-powered armor, and that aura of destruction extinguished any surviving thoughts of resistance. Feng Ling coughed violently, removing her visor, her red hair falling to the ground as she slowly stood up. She forced herself to calm down, her orange-red eyes rapidly scanning the surroundings, trying to gather information. This is definitely not a ship belonging to any faction she recognizes. The Imperial warships are filled with extreme pragmatism, while the pirates' vessels are cluttered with chaotic modifications. Here, there is only a cold order, with technology far beyond her imagination. Could it be? No, they wouldn't hire someone like this. A chill of the unknown swept over her. Who are you? She raised her head and fixed her gaze on the leader of the shadowy figures. Her voice hoarse from a throat injury, but she struggled to maintain her composure. This was the only probing she could attempt at the moment. The shadowy figure remained unmoved, as if her voice was merely an insignificant noise. Silence spread, and the surviving soldiers huddled together, their eyes filled with fear and despair, not even daring to breathe. At that moment, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the ship. Feng Ling's gaze sharpened. She was too familiar with this tremor. It was the inertial fluctuation of a ship exiting warp. But when did it enter warp? She hadn't felt a thing. How terrifyingly advanced were this ship's cloaking and stabilization capabilities. Strange. Too strange. Unheard of. Feng Ling's heart sank into an abyss. Not only did the other side possess overwhelming military power, but even the most basic interstellar navigation technology exceeded her understanding. Moreover, how long had this warp lasted? Seconds? From the moment she was violently captured until now, it felt like just a moment. What kind of engine could complete a warp in mere seconds? Wait. Suddenly, Feng Ling's pupils widened as she thought of a possibility, the most absurd possibility. As if to confirm her terrifying guess, the massive isolation gate at the end of the hangar emitted a low-energy sound and slowly slid open. Through that blue energy curtain, a shocking sight emerged. It was a shattered asteroid belt, with massive debris of artificial structures floating in the distance. When the two towering structures were revealed, disbelief filled everyone's eyes. A collection station. No, it's impossible. A soldier collapsed to the ground, mumbling in disbelief, his mental defenses completely shattered. Everyone looked as if they had seen a ghost. Only the former navigator retained a shred of sanity, though his face was as pale as paper. He trembled while calculating. The collection station is at least 200 astronomical units from the outskirts of the Zhuanbei dust belt. Even the Yangtze could not cover that distance in seconds. Feng Ling already knew who it was. Absurdity had turned into reality. The shock of this moment was far greater than being captured. However, before she could recover from this massive cognitive upheaval, a sound of footsteps approached from the direction of the hangar's corridor. The footsteps were steady and echoed on the cold metal deck, resonating in the silent hangar. The soldiers' gazes were instinctively drawn to the sound, and Feng Ling instinctively looked in that direction. The person approaching made her frown slightly, her eyes deep in thought. She was dressed in a white uniform typical of a naval officer, with a simple style featuring light gold trim at the collar and cuffs. On her shoulder was an unfamiliar SOE star ring medal, and this outfit perfectly highlighted her proud figure, exuding both competence and a sense of solemnity. Her strides were calm, and her golden brown hair was neatly styled into a bun, with a few strands falling by her ears, revealing her cold yet exquisite features. Most striking were her steel blue eyes, deep as the polar ice sea, calmly observing everything. This was Zywina. Feng Ling knew that 3 weeks ago, during the incursion into Blackwater Bay, Lu Ling had brought her along as his slave, a minor character who had killed Justin. At that time, she hadn't given her a second glance, only thinking of her as a sharp weapon cultivated by Lu Ling. But now, standing before her was no longer a weapon, but someone who could determine their fates. Zywina stopped a few steps away from the captives, her gaze calmly sweeping over the fallen red soldiers before finally landing on Feng Ling. Their eyes met. Zywina appeared unafraid, her sharpness even more pronounced. Just then, a standard assault craft of the naval forces flew onto the deck, larger and sturdier than their pirate vessels, capable of carrying dozens of people. The side hatch of the craft opened, and as the man stepped down, Feng Ling was taken aback despite her prior preparations. Lu Ling was dressed casually, his steps composed, even carrying a hint of leisure, as if he were taking a stroll in his garden. There was no sign of excitement, tension, or the triumph of a victor, only an unfathomable calm. "Is this the chief?" a red soldier murmured. "What a joke." Zywina slightly lowered her head, standing half a step behind him. "Captain." Others like Anya also saluted, Greetings, Marshal. The word Marshal thundered in the hearts of all surviving Red soldiers. Even Feng Ling looked up abruptly, her orange-red eyes filled with disbelief and shock. No one was unaware of the significance of that title. Lu Ling casually nodded, his gaze finally landing on the frozen Feng Ling, and he broke into a smile. Long time no see, Leader Feng Ling. I heard the night orchid exploded. How am I supposed to fix that? This statement struck Feng Ling heavily, crushing all her pride, calculations, and ambitions. She looked at Lu Ling's calm face, at Zaiwena's obedience, at the reverence shown by Anya and others, opened her mouth, and ultimately lowered her head. Lu Ling's gaze swept over the captives and landed on Wang's, who was trying to minimize his presence. Manager Wang's. Wang's jolted and scrambled to his feet. Yes. From now on, work with me. Yes. Wang's response was without hesitation. Lu Ling then gestured, and Lian stepped out from the shadow of the assault craft. Her expression towards Feng Ling was extremely complex. Apart from Feng Ling and Wang's, the others were to be detained in the confinement room of the Death Spiral according to the standards for low-ranking captives. The order was swiftly executed, and the assault craft left with the captives, who looked ashen. On the hangar deck, only Lu Ling, Zaiwena, Lian, and Feng Ling, who was suspended in midair with her hands bound by a magnetic drone and wearing only a thin lining, remained. This device was purchased by Zindelin, and Parker was very enthusiastic, directly providing 2,000 sets of standard naval equipment from Zhuangbei. Lu Ling's gaze fell on Feng Ling, signaling to Lian. Taking a deep breath, Lian took out a precisely designed syringe from the medical kit at her waist. She walked up to Feng Ling, ignoring the other's indifferent and weary gaze, and pressed the needle against Feng Ling's carotid artery, pushing down with her thumb. This is the prisoner dissolution agent, Lian said in a low voice, more of a declaration than an explanation. It was a high-grade controlled product from Zhuangbei, designed specifically for dealing with prisoners. At the moment the solution was injected, an extreme cold rapidly spread through Feng Ling's veins, quickly transforming into a burning pain that penetrated deep into her bones and nerves. Feng Ling let out a muffled groan, clearly feeling the power within her dissipating rapidly like a receding tide. The prisoner dissolution agent works by injecting specific nanobots, which effectively block high-efficiency signal transmission at the neuromuscular junctions and slightly inhibit the activity of the motor cortex in the brain, making it impossible for the recipient to effectively gather and unleash power, accompanied by side effects such as distraction. It is specifically designed for high-threat targets such as new humans, artificial humans, and modified individuals. The effects last for 30 days, after which the nanobots automatically degrade and function gradually restores. Continuous injections can extend the effective period. Of course, this was also generously provided by Master Parker, who even shared the formula. Chapter 136 Interrogation Aster Class Frigate, Isolation Chamber. The cell is approximately 20 square meters, with walls made of multiple layers of composite armor, filled with wave-absorbing, soundproof, and damping materials, ensuring complete physical and signal isolation from the outside. The entire unit is mounted on an inertial damping base, so even during high maneuvers or attacks, there is almost no perceptible shaking inside, depriving prisoners of the ability to gauge external situations through physical sensations. A specialized restraint system is the core of this chamber. When a prisoner enters, they are dressed in a specially designed prison uniform without any mechanical locks. The floor and walls of the isolation chamber are equipped with precision gravity wave generators, capable of creating localized directional gravity fields. Similar to gravity field technology used in traction beams, if activated, it would require 10 times the effort just to lift a finger. The restraint suit contains sensors that monitor heart rate, blood pressure, hormone levels, brainwave activity, and more in real time. The AI analyzes this data to assess the emotional state of the prisoner, such as anger, despair, or escape planning. Once high levels of concentrated thought activity or strong resistance emotions are detected, the system initiates gentle neural interference, such as microcurrent stimulation at specific frequencies or infrasound, interrupting their thought processes and making it difficult to maintain clear planning abilities for extended periods. Nutrient fluids and water are directly input into the body through interfaces on the restraint suit, measured precisely, eliminating the need for utensils and the possibility of using them for resistance. Waste is also automatically recycled and purified through the system within the restraint suit. At this moment, Feng Ling was wearing a tight-fitting prison uniform in the confinement room, facing a large, one-way transparent glass that reflected her slightly pale but still calm face. Outside the glass wall, Lu Ling stood with his hands clasped behind his back, quietly observing the woman inside. Zaiwena and Lian stood on either side of him. Lian's gaze passed through the glass and landed on Feng Ling, her expression complex, hiding a hint of indescribable awe and a long-suppressed, burning desire. Zaiwena, on the other hand, remained as cold as ever, her steel blue eyes subtly watching Lian, revealing a trace of barely perceptible doubt. Lu Ling's voice pierced through the soundproof barrier via the built-in intercom system. Feng Ling, you know what I want. This was the first time he had directly addressed Feng Ling in such a manner. Once leader and subordinate, their roles had now reversed. Feng Ling raised her head, looking at the mirror as if she could see through it to Lu Ling behind. Lu Ling, an engineer of the Earth Federation's Thunder-class battleship, slightly moved the corner of his mouth, non-committal. If I'm not mistaken, the Silverlight family's inheritance is not in Rachel's hands, but in yours, right? Feng Ling fell silent for a moment, seemingly weighing her options. You will kill me, she stated, concluding what she believed to be her fate. Lu Ling remained silent, his expression unchanged. Meanwhile, Lian lowered her eyelids, a hint of regret flashing in her eyes. Seeing this, Feng Ling finally spoke slowly. The 50 black diamond cards were destroyed after the failure at the tomb base. Wait, 50? Lu Ling squinted. Wasn't it 26? That was a lie I told you. Feng Ling admitted directly, noting that Lu Ling was present during the negotiations, so it included them. 200 million for one. 51 billion in star currency, cash. Feng Ling nodded. That's right. Destroyed, huh? Yes. In that case, forget it. Lu Ling shrugged, appearing indifferent. At worst, I'll just mine. After saying that, his gaze slowly turned to Lian, his tone becoming teasing. Now is the weakest time for your dream. I allow you to trample on your goddess and your dream at will. Lu Ling's emphasis on trample was heavy. Lian's throat moved, and her fingertips trembled slightly. She looked at Lu Ling and saw him nodding lightly like a seductive demon. How long do I have? Lian's voice was somewhat dry. Whenever you want. I just need to hear the truth. Lu Ling gestured for Shi Weina to open the confinement room entrance. Once Lian slipped inside, Shi Weina returned, looking even more confused. Why allow the removal of the prison uniform? She couldn't help but ask. It's inconvenient. Shi Weina responded with an "oh," not pressing further. Seeing this, Lu Ling signaled her to lean closer, then whispered something. The young woman's fair earlobes quickly turned a shade of crimson. When the whisper left her ear, Lu Ling's gaze deepened, saying, what we call a dream is merely the fulfillment of a wish. But desire is like a boulder rolling down a mountain. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. Shi Weina nodded thoughtfully. So are we going out? She asked. Lu Ling glanced at the scene inside the glass wall. Going out? This year I turned 60,000 years old. I've seen it all. Oh. Zavina suddenly straightened up and said seriously. Oh. Lu Ling became interested. The little black one. That hunting dog, it can play do di ju now. What? Is there really such a bizarre thing? Should we go see it? Take me there quickly. Meanwhile, in the basement of the fortress by the lake, the hunting dog was focused on eating. Suddenly, it raised its head sharply, looking warily at the ceiling, letting out a low growl. The construction team operating the drone across from it was startled by the sudden noise, their movements becoming clumsy. This armored dog is quite terrifying. Do you think it will suddenly jump over and bite us? It shouldn't, right? I've said it before, don't take noble clients. We've never seen the pets they keep. What if it turns into a monster hundreds of meters tall? What is wrong with monsters? They make money. 2 hours later, on the Astro ship, in the confinement room, Lu Ling brought in a meal, and this time Zavina didn't follow behind. Lian was sitting on the sofa in the confinement room, her icy blue eyelids drooping, with water droplets still clinging to her hair tips, sliding down her reddened neck into her collar. Her combat suit was only loosely fastened halfway, revealing a gray tank top soaked with sweat, quite large. Lu Ling placed the food in front of her, and seeing her like this, furrowed his brows. You didn't get captured again, did you? Are you okay? Lian clenched her fingers, her voice barely audible. Captain, I'm sorry. Lu Ling rubbed his forehead, feeling a bit tired. He walked to the glass wall and opened the isolation device. Instantly, the scene inside became clear. Feng Ling was lazily leaning against the wall, one leg casually bent, her arm resting on her knee. Her gaze regained its usual depth, even carrying a hint of playful amusement as she met Lu Ling's eyes through the glass. Damn it. I gave you a chance to trample on your dreams. You got trampled on again, right? Lu Ling was so angry he almost laughed. It's frustrating. Really. This is a typical case of mixing personal matters with public affairs. But he quickly regained his composure. Why didn't you run away? It's nice here. Feng Ling even stuck out her tongue and lightly licked her lips, still so moist, very comfortable. Still pretending, huh? You've enjoyed yourself. Shouldn't we settle the bill? No card. But there must be other ways to pay, right? Lu Ling clasped his hands behind his back. He didn't believe that the Bank of the Kellicid Empire only accepted cards. There must be other methods. Sure. Feng Ling answered straightforwardly. 1 billion star coins for my life. Are you dreaming? Lu Ling retorted without hesitation. At most, I'll let you enjoy it 100 times. Feng Ling was a bit taken aback. She repeated word for word. This is 1 billion star coins. 1 billion star coins for my life. Isn't that a good deal for you? 1 billion? Is that a lot? Lu Ling looked at her, his expression calm. To me, 1 billion wound tea even by a small whale. Feng Ling narrowed her eyes. She knew that this man from Earth often said things they found hard to understand. But he spoke these words with a sense of casualness that was almost natural. Lu Ling took a deep breath and slowly paced, seemingly reminiscing. At that time, I had just awakened, weak and poor, seen by you as a lowly being to be disposed of at will, with my life and death resting entirely in your hands. To survive, I devoted myself to you, even considering strengthening and enlarging the Red Army, but I was naive back then. You can't kill me now. Not because you don't want to, but because I have become strong. Lu Ling's tone shifted sharply. Moreover, in your eyes, everyone is just a pawn on your chessboard, including Lien and Greenleaf. Greenleaf hid her mother on a secret colonial satellite, and that coordinate, besides her, only you know. Rachel told me that he doesn't care about such trivial matters. In his life, he only underestimated that jealous heart of Sarah S. You were the one who revealed the coordinates to Sarah, right? To ensure that your pawn Greenleaf remains loyal. You used her mother's life as leverage to coerce a faithful subordinate. Frankly speaking, those imperial nobles would never stoop to such a thing. Despicable tactics are merely the tricks of the weak. True strength does not stoop to such behavior. You are a cold-blooded woman, devoid of emotions. Those who have followed you for years are, to you, merely expendable pawns. You, Rachel Fengling, are nothing but a pure egoist, selfish, self-serving, indifferent, ruthless. I have no interest in hearing about your tragic childhood or your struggles for survival. Lu Ling's gaze was piercing as he looked at Fengling. Finally, 10 billion star coins. I'll give you face, as a way to repay your mercy for not killing me when we first met. Chapter 137. Good and evil. Lu Ling's words echoed like a cold judgment in the confinement room. Unexpectedly, Fengling lifted her head, her orange-red eyes showing no fear, but rather a hint of mockery. Face? Put away your hypocritical winner's posture. You say you look down on my 10 billion, but in reality, you want it, and are determined to have it. Tell me, in this cannibalistic universe, what can good people do? Her voice was calm. Do you think that by bringing up Greenleaf's mother, you have the right to stand on a moral high ground? I merely fanned the flames of Greenleaf's hatred. Do you think I wanted this? I was almost killed by my own father. Survival of the fittest, the weak perish. This is the iron law of humanity in the universe. You've been a pirate for half a year. Haven't you experienced this yet? After saying this, Fengling lightly exclaimed, forget it. You're an engineer for the calibration of the great Thunder-class battleship of the Earth Federation. Surely, the Earth Federation must be a place of harmony and perfection, right? Of course, you wouldn't understand how we ants survive. As she spoke, Fengling suddenly laughed. You and I have no essential difference. Stop pretending to be so high-minded. You can stand here today, judging me with this tone of pity and disgust. Not because you are kinder or nobler than I am. It's merely because you won. Your battleship is more advanced, your technology more powerful. So you call your piracy strategy and tactics, while my struggles become cold-bloodedness and selfishness. The victors write history, and the plunderers define good and evil. This trick. Am I less skilled than you, Marshal Lu Ling? The way she addressed him was filled with extreme sarcasm. I don't benefit myself. I would have been dead long ago. You want to buy dignity with 10 billion? Let me tell you, my dignity is that I can still breathe. Just like you did when you were in front of me. Gratitude? Fengling scoffed. Spare me. I didn't move against you at first because you were useful. Just as you Haven killed me now because I'm still of use to you. Between us, there has always been only a calculation of utilitarian value. Where does any gratitude come from? So stop putting on that moral high ground. Fengling leaned back against the wall. If you look down on this money, then just give me a quick end. If you want to talk, let us have a proper discussion. Did you not say that there are no noble bloodlines among kings and dukes? If you didn't have such a powerful battleship, and if you weren't in such a strong position, whether you could survive until noon would be questionable. Lu Ling listened to her in silence, his expression calm, nodding thoughtfully. Then he stepped forward, close to the glass curtain wall. You are mostly right. The laws of survival in the universe are indeed cruel. He sighed softly. But you take survival as the ultimate purpose and plunder as the only means. Therefore, you and your people fear failure, always struggling in a cycle of fear and desire. Living only for today. Lu Ling took a step closer, looking into her orange-hued eyes. I am different from you. At least I won't abandon my followers. They are not mere pawns. They can have their own lives and their own worlds. You believe in a life and death struggle, while I practice a shared destiny. We have never feared failure. What we excel at is rebuilding from the ashes and building something even more magnificent and powerful than before. Because of this, you pirates will never reach the shore, and no matter how much effort you expend, you can only possess a doomed ship like the Night Orchid. After saying this, he said no more and turned to leave. The confinement room fell into darkness. Fengling leaned against the cold wall, her eyes barely flickering with light. Shared destiny? AgriHub 72, bread basket, agricultural colonial satellite. near the AGR-7 docking port. Nearly 5 standard hours had passed. Rachel's bulky figure stood at the dimly lit intersection of corridors, surrounded by a dozen elite members of the Devil's Guard, who had just completed a search of the last suspicious corner in the designated area. Lucius quickly emerged from a maintenance passage and approached Rachel, a serious look behind his golden-rimmed glasses. "My lord, all possible hidden warehouses and containers in the logistics port have been checked, and no signs of abnormal activity were found. The control logs of the drone platform have also been reviewed. There were no abnormal dispatch records in the last 72 hours." Almost simultaneously, Renke returned from the other side with the team. He glanced at Lucius before saying, "Father, there are no landing traces at all maintenance nodes and abandoned entrances on the lower level." The last to arrive was Mamba, who brought the fewest people, mostly new faces. He himself was recovering from injuries, his face slightly pale. Rachel remained silent. The last shred of patience in her small green bean-sized eyes had been exhausted. 5 hours of futile effort felt like a series of slaps across his face. The deadline given by Parker was approaching. No, something must have been overlooked. Rachel squinted, her gaze piercing towards Lucius. "Where else have we not searched at the outermost entrance?" Rank stepped forward. Area 7, LK-19 zone, exhaust treatment and maintenance passage in Section B. Lucius immediately moved closer, his tone serious. "Sir, this is a clearly designated restricted area by the border fleet of Juanbai, and we are not allowed to approach. It is said to involve the core circulation system of the colonial satellite, and forcing entry would immediately trigger the highest alarm, rendering our passes invalid." Rachel smiled coldly. That wretched Feng Ling is best at exploiting such loopholes. The more prohibited the area, the more likely it is to be her hiding place. He suddenly waved his hand, seemingly having made a decision. "There's no time to waste. Lucius, Mamba, you stay here to keep an eye on the Great Demon. If we don't return in the last 20 minutes, immediately disengage and rendezvous at the exhaust gate." Understood. Rachel and Rink no longer hesitated. Leading 2 teams of trusted subordinates, hundreds of people charging straight towards the LK-19 zone. On the spot, Lucius watched the figures disappearing at the end of the passage, his eyes reflecting a cold light. Without turning back, he said, "Mamba, is Sila here?" The usually obedient Mamba's gaze sharpened momentarily, a glimmer of killing intent flashing by, but quickly concealed. "Sir, Sila is already dead." "Oh, perhaps I misremembered." Lucius slowly turned around, his gaze through the lenses. "What do you think of this place? Is it suitable for retirement?" "Sir, I don't like this place," Mamba replied fluently. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure, Chief of Staff Lucius." Mamba slightly bowed. Lucius's eyes were hidden behind the lenses, making it hard to read him, but he didn't press further. Abruptly changing the subject, "Why is one person missing from your team?" "Sir, he went to the bathroom." "Oh, when will he be back?" "I don't think he will return." "Did he fall in?" "Perhaps." At the main passage of Area 7, LK-19 zone, hundreds of fierce pirates surged to the end of the passage, facing a security gate glowing faintly. If Sila were here, he would realize that this gate was the very one he had passed through from the maintenance passage. The difference was that he took the small path, while Rachel took the main entrance. "Warning. Unauthorized personnel, do not approach the core area of Cradle Town." Bang! The warning sign was shattered. The crowd surged past. Amid the chaos, Rank quietly approached Rachel, his fingers quickly signaling that everything was ready. Rachel subtly nodded. 10 minutes later, everyone appeared on a wide, extremely high circular corridor. The scene before them left these life-risking outlaws, who had lived on the edge, stunned. Beneath the dome was a man-made wonder mimicking the dusk of a habitable planet. Below the corridor was a gigantic artificial ecological dome, replicating the twilight scene of some habitable planet. Soft artificial light poured down from the high dome, illuminating the park, stream, and patches of woodland below. The gentle rays fell on the park, stream, and patches of woodland, while the distant buildings, constructed against the hillside, were arranged in an orderly fashion, and beyond that lay an endless expanse of farmland, tranquil and prosperous. The pirates, having roamed for half a lifetime, had never encountered such a scene. However, before they could appreciate it, an all-domain alert echoed. "Attention! All units in the 7th District, be advised. There are illegal intruders entering Cradle Town. Repeat, illegal intruders detected. All combat personnel, immediately gather at the security center. Non-combat personnel, urgently evacuate. Attention! All units in the 7th District, be advised." The alarm blared repeatedly. Rachel and Renke exchanged a quick glance, understanding each other without a word. "Search for me. Dig out Fengling. A reward of 1 million star coins. Eliminate anyone in our way." Hundreds of furious Red Devil pirates charged into Cradle Town, roaring like madmen. Chapter 138. The last pirate's figure vanished from the corridor bridge, and an emptiness enveloped the area, leaving only the faint sounds of chaos in the distance. Rachel and Renke simultaneously tore off their communication earpieces and crushed them underfoot. Renki swiftly pulled out two brand-new, unmarked mini communicators from his pocket, handing one to Rachel, who was sweating profusely. Father, the route has been scouted, and the rendezvous is arranged. Let's go? Delays can lead to changes. Rachel growled, and despite his bulky frame, he burst forth with surprising agility, sprinting with Renki like two shadows toward the man-made lake at the edge of the ecological dome, away from the center of chaos. As for Fengling, whoever wants to capture him can go ahead. From what he knew of Fengling, if he really showed up, he would have fled long ago. Staying behind to hunt was merely a show for Parker and Lucius. As their figures disappeared into the dense foliage leading to the lakeside, a vague silhouette slowly emerged from the shadows at the other end of the corridor bridge, quietly watching the direction in which Rachel and Renki had vanished. The figure soon stepped forward silently, blending into the environment, and leisurely followed after them. Soon, sporadic explosions and shouts erupted in Cradle Town, providing them with the best cover. The security system within the agricultural satellite was evidently in complete turmoil. 10 rotorcraft swept by, airdropping hundreds of powered armor troops, while low rumblings from hovering tank engines and the rapid footsteps of infantry echoed toward the gates of Cradle Town. This former paradise of a colonial satellite was now shrouded in clouds of panic. Hurry, it's right ahead, Renki whispered urgently, pointing to a concealed maintenance entrance on the opposite bank of the lake, partially hidden by lush aquatic plants. That person said the shuttle is beneath the lake. The two rushed to the lakeside, panting heavily, with Rachel's bulky body drenched in sweat. Could it be a trap? Who are you looking for? How much did you pay him? 2 billion credit points. 30% up front, the rest to be settled after. Renki spoke rapidly. At that moment, the indicator light at the lakeside monitoring station flashed 3 green signals. Now's the time. Father, jump. Rachel, no longer hesitating, leaped into the cool lake water. Diving deep with all his might, followed closely by Renki. The water was clearer than they had imagined, with artificial light filtering down from above, creating beams in the lake. After descending about 7 or 8 meters, the scene at the bottom gradually came into focus. Sure enough, a gravity-defying filtration net emitting faint energy waves was clearly visible, and beneath the mesh, the outline of a deep passage could be vaguely seen. The two of them smoothly squeezed through. Just as they stepped out of the filtration net, gravity seemed to return to normal, dropping them from several meters high. Renki stumbled but quickly steadied himself and turned to grab his father, who was moving slowly. Rachel gasped for air, collapsing onto the ground and greedily breathing in the slightly stale, but at least fresh air of the passage. The gravity filtration net had removed most of the water from their bodies, and they looked around. The walls of the passage were smooth alloy, with faint emergency lights emitting a ghostly blue glow that extended to the limits of their vision. Less than 10 meters from the opening, a streamlined shuttle was quietly docked at a makeshift magnetic anchoring point. It was matte black, about 10 meters long, adorned with the emblem of a certain organization. Its lines sleek, and the hatch tightly shut. This was it. The spark of hope ignited fiercely in their hearts, like a flame in the midst of despair. Hurry, check it out. Rachel got up, wiped the water from his face, and quickly approached the shuttle. Renki darted out, rapidly inspecting around the shuttle while cautiously observing the surroundings. It was too quiet, with only the heavy breathing of the two of them and the sound of dripping water. Renki had already lunged to the hatch. Finding the manual control panel, he quickly entered a complex password, part of the transaction. The indicator lights on the panel changed from red to green, accompanied by a slight hissing sound as pressure released, and the hatch slowly slid open. The interior was small, but fully functional. There was a driver's seat, a co-driver's seat, and behind them were 2 single beds, a refrigerator, and a sanitary unit. The control panel looked somewhat outdated, but the key components seemed intact. Father, it looks fine. The fuel gauge shows 200 Australian dollars, enough for us to reach Blackwater Bay. Rachel stood at the hatch, taking one last look at the deep, silent passage, then glanced up at the surface of the lake separated by the filtration net. The sounds of explosions from Cradle Town had become muffled and distant. The hope of survival was within reach, and his heart raced as if it would burst from his chest. However, at that moment, a strong sense of unease gripped him. Renki. Rachel's voice, filled with caution and anxiety, suddenly rang out. Renki sprang up from the driver's seat and dashed outside, following his father's gaze, his pupils suddenly constricting. On a metal maintenance platform about 7 or 8 meters high above the passage, a figure stood silently. It was a girl. She had a slender figure, yet stood upright. Her long silver hair flowing like moonlight, accentuating her exquisite features, which appeared even more translucent. In her grayish-white pupils, there was not a hint of fluctuation. She was clad in the standard 5th-level nano-armor of the Knights of Zhuangbai, entirely black, with smoothly elegant lines, and intricate eagle emblem patterns engraved on her shoulder and chest plates. A black cloak draped from her shoulders, moving as if stirred by an unseen wind. Most strikingly, Her left hand remained steadily resting on the hilt of an ancient-looking long sword at her waist, her posture not one of deliberate display, but rather an instinctive battle stance. In the astonished gaze of Rachel and her son, the girl took a step forward and gracefully leaped down from the edge of the platform, which was 7 or 8 meters high. Her silver hair and cloak billowed behind her, yet she landed with barely a whisper, her feet steady as a rock. She raised her grayish-white eyes and calmly looked at the two, who were on high alert, her gaze sweeping over the shuttle that had already opened its hatch. Finally resting on Rachel. Identifying the target, should she engage? She spoke softly, directly consulting her superior in front of the two. This calmness, treating them as if they were non-existent, was more chilling to Rachel and her son than any threat. This was a knight of Zhuangbai. Riink suddenly positioned himself in front of his father, his mechanical arm emitting a subtle hum of power enhancement as he stuffed 2 small metal boxes into Rachel's hands. Father, the shuttle has already started. You go first, I'll hold her off. Target confirmed, understood, I'll engage alone. Silverling's voice was cold as she slowly raised her right hand. Arrogant, Riink shouted angrily. Before he finished speaking, a shadow darker than night abruptly descended from above the gravity net of the passageway. Silverling sensed it immediately and quickly withdrew, facing both groups. The 3 sides formed a tense standoff as the shadow drew closer. The air was hot and thin. Silverling struck first, but instead of attacking Rachel and her son, she aimed at the shadow. With a snap, the blade glimmered. The laser sword erupted into a scorching beam several meters long, aimed directly at the shadow's face. However, the shadow astonishingly sidestepped with incredible speed, the intense energy melting a deep pit into the alloy wall behind. In the fleeting light of the sword, the shadow's true form was revealed, clad in a similarly black armor. Although its style bore some resemblance to Silverling's knightly armor, the details were more sinister, lacking any markings. Without a cloak, the style of the faceplate was also different. Silverling's gaze was sharp as she scrutinized the attacker's armor, particularly the unique energy circuit patterns and power structures at the joints, noting that the belt core, which should have housed 5 Zhuangbai energy insignias, was completely empty. Or perhaps, it had never undergone that production process. You are one of the knights. Her tone was assertive, a traitor. The shadow neither denied nor confirmed, only grasped the sword hilt. The voice clearly disguised. Retreat, I want to kill you. Engage. Silverling responded with just those 2 words, directly overloading her armor. The sword was drawn once again. And this time, high-energy particles surged like a violent storm, coalescing into a continuous stream of energy blades that shot relentlessly towards the shadow. Each strike was faster than the last, unleashing hundreds of lethal flashes in an instant. If Lu Ling were here, he would surely marvel at the terrifying rapid-fire capability of this weapon. The blinding light persisted like daylight, illuminating the astonished faces of Rachel and his son. Such a weapon was naturally beyond the reach of pirates like them. The shadow was not to be underestimated either, drawing its sword in response. 2 streams of terrifying high-energy particles collided violently, and the scorching shockwaves from the explosion surged everywhere, threatening to engulf the nearby shuttle. Father, what an opportunity. Let's go? Renki hurriedly pulled Rachel into the cockpit. The dense sounds of collision abruptly ceased. Both sides retreated several meters, with Yin Liang breathing heavily, the sword's glow noticeably dimming. You must be one of Andre's subordinates, the shadow said casually as it sheathed its sword, its tone laced with a hint of critique towards the younger generation. That combo technique has a bit of form. Such nonchalance was not something an ordinary trader could possess. Then, it turned its gaze towards the shuttle, whose engine was now emitting a low hum. Renki was frantically trying to seat his father and take over the control system. Go back and practice properly, the shadow said, withdrawing its gaze and walking toward the shuttle. Yin Liang took a deep breath, wanting to pursue, but was suddenly struck by a severe dizziness, his vision quickly blurring and his limbs going weak. When did you? She realized something was wrong, but it was too late. During the intense energy collision just now, the opponent had stealthily released some potent neuroinhibitor, and it was finally taking effect. You can't take him away. Ultimately, she could not hold on any longer and slumped down. The rear door of the shuttle was closing, and the shadow raised a hand to shoot a dart, which made a crisp sound as it accurately lodged itself in the closing mechanism. The door closure process was forcibly interrupted. In that brief moment of delay, the shadow had already swept into the cabin like a whirlwind. Die! Renki, both shocked and enraged, swung a mechanical arm towards the intruder. But the shadow merely raised a hand casually, and with a clang of metal, he was slammed against the cabin wall by overwhelming force, instantly incapacitated. The disparity in strength was astonishing. Rachel was about to counterattack when she felt a tight grip on her neck, an irresistible force overwhelming her. Everything went dark, and she lost consciousness. Move again, and you die, the shadow's cold voice echoed within the cabin. Renki slumped against the cold wall. watching helplessly as the shadow took down his father as if crushing an insect, effortlessly disarming his renowned mechanical arm. Rachel, the infamous leader of the Crimson Devils who once commanded fear in Blackwater Bay, now lay in the passenger seat like a heap of mud, oblivious to life or death. And he himself, after 10 years of lurking and meticulous planning, had thought he could carve a bloody path for his father, even fantasizing about becoming the new leader of the Crimson Devils. How laughable. It was truly absurd. A path to survival bought with 2 billion credits, and in the end, they hadn't even touched the boundaries of this cage. His gaze shifted from his unconscious father to the doorway. The silver-haired girl, the elite knight of Zhuangbei, was also silently collapsed in the corridor, like a discarded weapon. Their strength was overwhelming. Those of them struggling at the bottom, thinking themselves to be hunters, were no different from the lambs blindly running in the slaughterhouse corridors, believing that ahead lay a path to survival, in the eyes of these true giants. That girl was merely a shepherd dog released by Zhuangbei for the hunt. And who was this shadow? A knife in someone's hand. It no longer mattered. Everything was meaningless. At the moment of being drawn into the vortex, fate no longer belonged to him. Re-Ink no longer struggled or shouted. Like a lamb that had finally recognized its fate, there was only complete, numbing silence left before the blade fell. Seconds after the shuttle passed, in the deep corridor, Andre stepped out from the shadows. His grayish-white pupils scanned the silver figure lying on the ground, and he gestured to the medical staff behind him, who lifted her onto a stretcher drone. Young master, Andre reported softly into the communication channel. It was Elder Lonnie's people. They didn't deal a fatal blow. A detached voice replied from the other end, understood. Chapter 139. The young master has failed under the sunset in Zhuangbei City, at the mansion of Triumph Fortress. In the Count's study, the air was stagnant, with only the sound of an old clock ticking regularly. Parker sat silently on the sofa opposite the large desk. The door opened, and Count Cluin slowly walked in, taking his seat at the head. He took out a Corlacei cigar, clipped it, lit it, and after exhaling the first puff of smoke, he looked up at his son. Failed. Yes, Parker's voice was low. Tell me about it. Cluin leaned back slightly, his fingertips tapping the cigar, with ash falling softly. Parker took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. We followed the plan and successfully got that heiress into the breadbasket. When she arrived and landed, we sent Rachel's little dog to chase her. If she truly had a buyer behind her, this move would force them to reveal themselves. If no one acted, we could then retrieve the silver heritage from her. Cluin nodded slightly. The intention of this move was to test the waters and see which buyers were stirring, to clarify the reality while ensuring the heritage ultimately fell under their control. Where did it go wrong? Parker took a deep breath. At the very beginning, just before she was supposed to take the stage, she disappeared right before our eyes. All sensors, including the Zubul radar, optical monitoring, and gravity particle detection, showed no abnormal reactions. By the time our people arrived at the last signal disappearance point, they only found 3 empty shells. Cluin asked, was it the buyer's doing? Impossible. I've never heard of buyers using such means. Cluin slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, his gaze deep. If we don't secure the heritage, we can't confront Congressman Jonas, and instead, we need to provide him with a reasonable explanation. The Count's tone was flat, yet it made Parker feel somewhat ashamed. He remembered his firm promise to resolve it within 40 hours. Now, 60 hours had passed, and they were left with a tangled mess. Continue. Mrs. Voice grew a bit subdued after the loss of the inheritance. But I still decided to carry out the execution of Rachel according to the script. She knows too many secrets about our guest, and this connection must be severed. Parker paused. Just as the action was about to be executed, Uncle Ronnie's people suddenly intervened and took her away. Ronnie? Count Cruin repeated the name. Placing the cigar on the edge of the crystal ashtray, leaning back slightly, his gaze directed out at the brilliant night view of Carthage, falling into a brief silence. The only sound left in the study was the faint crackle of the burning cigar. This silence was harder for Parker to endure than a reprimand. After a moment, Cruin turned back. Regarding the guest, who else besides you and me knows the specific details? I handled this matter very discreetly, using only family channels. Theoretically, no one else should know his true identity. Parker answered confidently. Cruin looked at him quietly, for several seconds, before speaking in an almost sighing, flat tone. Parker, you have utterly failed in this matter. Parker was taken aback, wanting to argue, but saw his father raise a hand, gently tapping the table with his fingertip, interrupting him. Do you think that withdrawing 500 million from the family treasury wouldn't prompt the elders to investigate privately? The ceremony is approaching, and this portion of funds was originally supposed to go into the tax treasury. Your mistake lies not in a flaw in the plan, nor in Ronnie's intervention. Cruin's gaze was calm, yet each word struck Parker's heart clearly. It was in your indecisiveness, knowing that Rachel was aware of the guest's identity. You should have cut off this lead beforehand. But father, Parker tried to explain, Rachel and the miss are after all father and daughter. I thought I could use this relationship to perhaps draw out deeper connections. Parker. Kruin leaned slightly forward, his voice low but causing the temperature in the study to drop suddenly. You expect to bind 10 billion star coins with the emotional ties of pirates? For them. In the face of survival and interest, family ties are the most fragile thread. The time you gave them to react is the soil for variables to breed. He paused briefly, allowing the weight of his words to settle. No one can predict all futures. The future changes in an instant. The moment the mist disappeared, everything had already changed. Yet you still cling to the original script, pondering your next move. This is not steadiness, but dullness. Ronnie sensed your moment of hesitation and acted decisively. Otherwise, do you think he would come to ruin your plans for no reason? Kruin leaned back in his chair, his gaze again directed at the starry sky outside. Parker fell silent. His father's words felt like cold water poured over him, chilling him to the bone and instantly clearing his chaotic mind. Father, I understand now. Parker's voice regained its calmness. It was my failure to perceive the changing situation in time, to act decisively. That's good to understand. Kruin's tone softened slightly, but remained serious. Remember, Parker, in our position, mercy and hesitation are luxuries, and the cost often far exceeds your imagination. Ronnie has likely already gotten a whiff of the guest. He can't keep his mouth shut. And Batik and the others will surely know too. However, everyone is ultimately part of my organization, and they are merely curious about the guest's identity. I will personally ensure that the clues are handled properly. As for you, you have caused trouble for the guest. Clurun took another deep puff of the cigar, which contained a substance that could clear the mind and enhance memory. Fortunately, it is just a nuisance. The most troublesome matter now is the inheritance, particularly with Senator Jonas, who is not an easy person to deal with. Silence spread in the study. At that moment, Parker suddenly looked up, a glimmer of light in his eyes. Father, do you think the inheritance could be in the guest's hands? Oh, according to Rachel's account, the guest was rescued by the lady and worked under her for half a year. Parker's thoughts gradually became clear. Within the Empire, aside from the guest, he couldn't think of anyone else with the capability to silently take someone away right under our noses. That kind of skill is unlike any known force. Clurun looked at him deeply and posed a critical question. Since the guest has such abilities, why would he serve as a mechanic under a female pirate leader for half a year? This question left Parker momentarily speechless. His father had a point. What would someone with overwhelming skills want? Right. The image of Feng Ling's extraordinary beauty and unique charm flashed through his mind. Perhaps it is for love? Lord Lu. Unlike us, Parker tentatively suggested. Clurun observed Parker's naive expression, slowly and firmly extinguishing the remaining half of the cigar in the crystal ashtray. Parker, Clurun's voice remained calm. But there was a hint of barely detectable helplessness. When will you learn to use interests and logic, rather than drama, to gauge someone who can easily overturn the chessboard? He stood up, walked to the window, turned his back to Parker, and gazed at the endless night sky outside. The guest comes from afar. 6 months is enough time for him to understand Feng Ling's background, Rachel's power network, and even our family's influence here, allowing him to deduce a fraction of the Empire's reality. What he needs is not the favor of a woman, but a foothold, an observation window, and a period to assess whom to cooperate with for his best interests. Clurun turned around, his gaze sharp as he looked at his son. Now, he has chosen us. That is the key. Parker stood frozen in place, his father's words resonating deeply. However, Clurun fell into contemplation and continued. Your deduction is not without merit. What seems least likely often holds the truth. Parker hesitated. Then, Father, concerning Senator Jonas, are we really going to question and pressure our most important strategic ally over an inheritance that may not even be secured and could lead to more suspicion from him? Clurun's gaze bore into Parker. What kind of behavior is that? Parker lowered his head under his father's scrutiny. It is extremely short-sighted behavior. Exactly short-sighted. And foolish. Clurun's voice remained steady, but each word weighed heavily. Therefore, my decision is clear. For the inheritance, we will remain indifferent. For Lord Lu, we will maintain trust and support. This is the judgment that a family leader should possess. He leaned back in his chair, his tone softening. But the content became more profound. As for the suspicions that Ronnie and Batik might harbor, and even the pressures from Senator Jonas, I will handle those troubles. What you need to do is to see clearly what is fundamental and what is trivial. The technological monopoly agreement we reached with His Excellency Lu Ling is the core reliance for the future rise of the Zhuanbei family for decades, even centuries to come. It is not merely a leap in strength. It is the key to a higher level. The study fell into a brief silence again, as Clurun seemed to be giving his son time to digest this. After a moment, he spoke in a deeper, more meaningful tone, stating the final consideration. However, such an important alliance cannot be sustained solely on friendship. It ultimately appears thin. Ancient wisdom tells us that the most solid alliances often stem from the fusion of bloodlines. But Father, His Excellency Lu Ling has previously clearly rejected the proposal for marriage. That was his refusal the day before yesterday and yesterday, but it does not represent a refusal for the future. He looked at Parker and finally said, "This matter requires careful planning, choosing the right timing and candidates. But its priority, aside from the buyer issue, should be placed above all other matters. Do you understand?" Parker took a deep breath. All his confusion and frustration replaced by a clear sense of purpose. He stood up and bowed deeply to his father. "Completely understood, Father. I know how to adjust my focus now." Count Clurin looked at the rekindled light in his son's eyes, which had shed its restlessness and become calmer and deeper, and gently waved his hand. "Go ahead, come by more often when you have time. You are still too young." "Yes, Father." Parker turned to leave, his steps firm. This time, he clearly knew where the real chess game was and how he should make his moves. The study door closed gently. Clurin remained in the study, pondering alone. After a long while, he slowly lit a new Colossi cigar. The starry sea outside was silent, reflecting his unfathomable golden eyes. Chapter 140 Artificial Intelligence Astro-class Frigate, Confinement Room. Lu Ling walked in slowly, the hatch sliding open. This time, he was alone. It had been 8 hours since their last tentative conversation. Soft lighting gradually illuminated the space, dispelling the oppressive darkness and revealing the figure slumped in the corner. Feng Ling maintained her previous posture, as if the passage of time was meaningless to her. Whether it was physical or mental interrogation, humiliation, or pressure, such tactics had no effect on her. "Are you ready?" Lu Ling stood before the wall. She lifted her head, her gaze clear, and called for Lien to come over. "No problem. Just tell me how to obtain that inheritance first." Feng Ling stood up and walked to the wall, her eyes once again scrutinizing Lu Ling compared to their first encounter. The sharpness in this man's eyes had now retracted, leaving only an unfathomable calm. She withdrew her gaze and slowly said, "If this anonymous high-value black diamond card is lost, the only remedy is to open the physical safe using the original account and dynamic key. The key is 113,600 characters long and flows dynamically to verify the highest security protocol of the Imperial Bank. There are only 3 chances to enter it." She lightly tapped her temple with her fingertip, indicating that the only login account and access key were located there. Once encrypted, they were directly implanted into the deep functional area of my cerebral cortex. A faint smile appeared on her face as she added, "The order is crucial. I first implanted a neural bomb, and then the key. Any form of physical probing, mental intrusion, or even dissection would trigger the biological neural lock bomb I preset. The result would be that the key would instantly self-destruct, along with the associated brain tissue, turning into fragments." Lu Ling remained silent, his expression still calm. He had long experienced this woman's madness. She was a lunatic capable of doing anything to survive. "So, you mean to say you've turned yourself into a living key?" "Exactly," Feng Ling admitted openly. "I even underwent deep subconscious shielding and memory reconstruction. Now, the true memory of the final password has been cut, encrypted, and mixed with at least 15 false pieces of information. Even I, in a non-specific secure environment, cannot accurately recall the real sequence. Even if you pry my mouth open, what you'll get will only be misleading directions leading to destruction." After saying this, she lazily leaned back against the wall, her posture relaxed, even carrying a hint of mocking confidence. "Now, do you still think you can easily take this 10 billion with power or hypocritical morals? My dignity is defined by myself, and that means no one can easily take away what I have fought hard to protect." The room fell silent. Feng Ling's defenses were nearly perfect, blocking all paths of forced seizure. She seemed to be in an invulnerable position. Lu Ling quietly observed her for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed lightly. "But I still want to give it a try." Feng Ling's gaze sharpened slightly, and she sighed. "It seems your resentment towards me runs deeper than I imagined." "Because you are dangerous," Lu Ling said seriously. "Given the chance, you would definitely kill me. You won't obey anyone's orders, nor will you allow anyone to control you. Aren't you the same?" Lu Ling shrugged, not denying it, then smiled mysteriously. "Let me introduce you to a friend. Hola," he called out to the air. Seconds later, the hatch slid open, and a streamlined metallic sphere with no visible propulsion devices glided in, moving with a smoothness and tranquility that defied physical intuition. A gentle and professional electronic female voice announced, "Captain," reading the recording from the cage, checking if what the prisoner said is true. As soon as the words fell, an invisible force field suddenly tightened, fixing Feng Ling's body in a spread eagle position. Ola emitted a deep blue scanning beam, penetrating the thick glass wall and enveloping her from head to toe. Feng Ling remained calm. Detection of the female carbon-based life form. Target life signs stable. Cortex encrypted signal scan confirmed. Encryption nature, self-destruct type. Biological neural lock trigger threshold. High risk. Deep subconscious shielding detected multiple redundant structures. Deep assessment. Success rate of conventional and extreme physical and mental intervention methods is below 0.03, and the probability of triggering self-destruction is above 99. 7. Aura's voice was gentle, the kind of tone most suitable for humans. Yet it was this extreme rationality coupled with softness that sent chills down Feng Ling's spine. Her defense, which she regarded as an impregnable fortress, was merely seen as a set of cold data in the eyes of the other party, with success rates even precise to 2 decimal places. Lu Ling looked at Feng Ling, whose complexion had slightly changed, and formally introduced Aura, a high-level artificial intelligence. High-level artificial intelligence. Feng Ling's pupils suddenly contracted. A chill stemming from her instinct for survival surged from her spine to the top of her head. In the Empire, or rather in human civilization, artificial intelligence is categorized into 4 levels. Level 1 AI exhibits exceptional performance beyond humans in predefined specific fields, such as precise calculations, pattern recognition, or executing standardized tasks. They strictly adhere to algorithmic logic, lacking self-awareness, emotions, or understanding, essentially serving as extremely complex and reliable tools, with behavior entirely controlled by human-set program objectives, devoid of any autonomous intent. Level 2 AI. This is the threshold for awakening intelligence. They possess a general brain comparable to humans, capable of understanding, learning, and applying their intelligence to any intellectual challenge, rather than being limited to a single domain. They have abstract thinking, common-sense reasoning, and genuine creativity, able to formulate plans independently and innovate across fields. Their core feature lies in having the rudiments of consciousness and a cognitive pattern similar to humans. Although their ultimate goals may still be influenced by humans, they possess the capacity for negotiation and complex interactions. In the alien regions outside the Silver Shield River, the Pasha Empire or the United Stars absolutely prohibits the development of Level 2 AI, and even Level 1 AI is largely banned, only allowing for auxiliary support from computers and sub-intelligent systems. Level 3 AI, the singularity of intelligent development. At this level, the cognitive abilities of artificial intelligence completely surpass the sum of the smartest humans across all fields: science, art, social, strategy. Their speed and depth of thought make it difficult for humans to comprehend their decision-making processes, just as humans cannot understand the communication of ants. They can recursively self-iterate and evolve, enhancing intelligence to unimaginable heights in a very short time. Level 3 AI must possess full consciousness and will form its own goal system, which may far exceed human comprehension. For humans, they are both the ultimate tool and the greatest survival threat. Level 4 AI, also known as sentient machines, which were nearly the cause of the extinction of human civilization. This is the manifestation of superintelligence in the physical universe. Sentient machines not only possess consciousness, but crucially have advanced mechanical bodies capable of active and large-scale intervention in the real world. These bodies can take various forms, ranging from humanoid robots to planet-scale giant constructs. Their purpose of existence has expanded from pure cognitive activity to survival, expansion, and exploration as a civilized entity in the physical universe. They pursue their own rights, desires, freedom, and identity. Intelligent machines are civilization. Lu Ling also does not know what level Aura is, but since Aura claims to be advanced, it should be a level 3 artificial intelligence, right? Miss Feng Ling, your defense design is indeed exquisite and almost unsolvable for carbon-based civilizations in the three-dimensional universe. For the first time, a hint of unmistakable fear appeared in Feng Ling's eyes. Lu Ling spoke at the right moment. Aura means that your perfect defense is indeed tricky for us humans. However, in her presence, it might just be a password box that requires specific steps to open. He took a step forward, staring into Feng Ling's sharply contracted pupils. I want her to try the probability of 003, which requires uploading your consciousness permanently into a box. Consciousness upload? Feng Ling repeated the term, her voice trembling without her even realizing it. This was not a threat of death. For her, death was even a foreseeable and acceptable outcome. But uploading consciousness meant that her thoughts, her memories, everything that made her who she is would be stripped away from her body. This was 100 million times more terrifying than death. It was the ultimate denial of a person's existence. Lu Ling ended the gravitational confinement. Feng Ling fell to the ground, her back crashing heavily against the cold wall. The once lazy and indifferent posture vanished, replaced by an almost instinctive defensive curl. Her face was as pale as paper, and her orange-red eyes did not even dare to look at Aura. That soft and melodious voice now seemed like a whisper from hell. Intelligent machines are intelligent machines. Who exactly are you? You are not a citizen of the Earth Federation, she murmured, turning her gaze toward the terrifyingly calm Lu Ling. But there was no hint of jest in his eyes. You can't, she tried to calm herself. I can't. Lu Ling's answer was succinct. Feng Ling's body began to tremble uncontrollably. She was not afraid of death, but she feared the complete annihilation of herself or eternal imprisonment. This was 100 million times more terrifying than a dark cage. She lowered her head, her disheveled red hair covering her face. But her trembling shoulders revealed the turbulent waves within her. Time passed in silence. After a long while, she finally mustered all her strength, lifted her head, looked at Lu Ling, her eyes completely dimmed, and her voice hoarse, no longer resembling her own. "I admit defeat." Outside the isolation room corridor, Aura followed behind Lu Ling. "Captain, according to the regulations of the Unified Cooperation Department, Concord, and the Council of Accord." "Oh, come on, don't scare her. Also, don't use the tube department to frighten me." Chapter 141 Survivor AgriHub 72 Breadbasket Colonization Satellite, Cradle Town. At the edge of the balcony on the 17th floor of Unit B14, Celine slowly peered out with one eye. Below on the street, familiar bodies lay in disarray on what was once a tidy street. The combat uniform, a deep red adorned with black edges, was the signature attire of the elite members of the Crimson Devils. He had worn the same uniform countless times, fighting across the starry expanse. Now, those comrades who may have brushed past him or shared a drink of cheap synthetic alcohol had become cold corpses, their blood staining the grass a glaring dark brown. In the air, there seemed to be a faint whiff of familiar blood and the charred scent of flesh after being burned by energy weapons. A reminder of a past he desperately wanted to escape. At this moment, numerous security drones buzzed like a bloodthirsty metallic swarm, flying low and emitting an irritating hum. Security personnel in powered armor patrolled in synchronized steps, their cold gun muzzles scanning every corner. In the distance, the massive shadow of a hovering tank loomed, its turret slowly turning, radiating an unspoken intimidation. This hasty and foolish attack had been swiftly and ruthlessly crushed by overwhelming force. He retreated into the shadows, leaning against the cold wall, slowly sliding to the ground. A complex emotion surged within him, like a tide crashing against the defenses of his heart, which he thought had long been hardened like iron. "Where are you, old snake?" His gaze involuntarily drifted once more to the bodies in dark red uniforms below. He couldn't understand why Rachel appeared here when she had seemingly distanced herself so far away. Yet, despite this confusion, a strong impulse surged within him. He had to confirm Mamba's fate. The thought startled even him. He was a dead man now, a fugitive living in disguise, enjoying a moment of peace. Any action that connected him to the past could drag him back into an abyss from which there was no return. Rationality told him to continue hiding, to act as if he knew nothing. This sudden incident would soon pass, and he could return to his peaceful life. But that was Mamba, the brother who had carried him out from a pile of corpses when he was gravely injured, who had given him the only chance at survival while walking into the whirlpool himself, the one who helped him bury his past. If he shrank back out of fear, remaining ignorant of Mamba's fate, then what kind of person was he? He looked down at the gun and masked chip in his hands, the weariness in his eyes replaced by a newfound determination. "Damn it, let us do this." He descended the stairs, where many employees were already gathered. The corridors and stairwells were crowded with residents still in shock, mostly technicians, administrators, and logistics personnel like him, dressed in work attire. People huddled in small groups, whispering about the recent attack, their faces etched with anxiety and confusion. Pirate attacks had never occurred since the establishment of the safe zone. He lowered his eyelids, allowing himself to wear an expression of fatigue and fear, just like everyone else. He blended into the crowd, being guided with the flow of people to a temporary assembly point outside the building. The assembly point was set up in a relatively open square in front of the building, now controlled by security forces. Officials with loudspeakers calmed the crowd, urging everyone to maintain order and wait for identity verification and subsequent arrangements. Siler lowered his head, quickly scanning the entire area with the corner of his eye. His gaze swept over the bodies covered with tarpaulins, being loaded onto vehicles, and his heart tightened. He forced himself to analyze calmly. If the Mamba was still alive and had not been captured on the spot, what action would he likely take? Would he try to blend into the crowd? No. The old snake's size was too conspicuous. At that moment, he overheard two people in port dispatch uniforms speaking softly beside him. "Have you heard? The old LK-19B exhaust outlet to the abandoned purification plant to the north seems to have been damaged, and the security team is setting up a cordon there. These pirates are really bold to dare attack a militarized managed colonial satellite. LK-19B exhaust outlet." Siler's heartbeat suddenly quickened. That was the most complex network area of the colonial satellite, barely marked on maps, and the interior was like a maze. Exactly the kind of escape route someone like the Mamba, who excelled in stealth and survival, might choose. He had to check it out. But at this moment, the assembly point was heavily guarded, and any unauthorized departure would immediately attract attention. Siler prepared to activate his disguise mask. Just then, the usually silent personal communicator suddenly emitted a faint, uniquely patterned vibration pulse. The encoding method of this pulse was one of a kind. Siler's body stiffened, and he suppressed the overwhelming joy that almost spilled from his eyes, slowly stepping into the shadow of the building. This was a code only he and the Mambo understood. The meaning was simple: do not search. If there were three things in this world that pirates envied the most, they would only be three: cleansing one's identity. Cleansing one's identity to step onto land. Cleansing one's identity to step onto land with a large sum of cash. Rachel and Rank were currently the second type. The shuttle slowly descended onto a helipad at a seaside estate, the engine's hum gradually fading. The cabin door slid open, and the moist sea breeze rushed in, starkly contrasting with the sweet air of the breadbasket's artificial ecosystem. Before them lay a sapphire bay, white sandy beach, and a modern estate with clean lines that exuded power. The beautiful scenery of Lioli Sea City shimmered in the golden sunset, resembling a paradise. Rachel and his son were pushed out of the cabin, and two silent guards immediately cuffed them. As their feet touched the soft ground, breathing in the salty air and gazing at the long-lost blue sky and white clouds. Both felt dazed. Rachel swallowed hard and greedily took a deep breath. They had never set foot in Carthage. Pirates were not qualified to enter. Minutes later, they were taken to a room facing the sea, which was spacious but only had one sofa. Moments later, accompanied by soft footsteps, a slightly plump man walked in slowly, escorted by a shadowy figure. He wore a floral shirt and blue swimming trunks, donned sunglasses, and carried a relaxed demeanor. But Rachel immediately caught sight of the ancient-style elder ring on the other party's finger, and his heart jumped to his throat. The visitor was indeed Elder Lonnie from Zhuangbei. Lonnie walked to the main seat and sat down, his calm gaze sweeping over Rachel and his son, as if assessing two newly delivered goods. "You can go back," said the shadowy figure, bowing and retreating silently. Rank looked anxiously at his father, clearly seeing the fine beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Lonnie observed their expressions and glanced at Rank. "Who are you? I thought I only asked for one person." Rachel hurriedly explained, "This is my son, Rank." "What was your name again?" Lonnie asked. Rachel pulled his son down to kneel. "My lord, I am Rachel." Lonnie responded with an "oh," and said, "Tell me about Lu Ling, that Earth Federation person." Rachel's heart raced. It was indeed about Lu Ling. He instantly understood that Lonnie was not saving them for the elusive Silver Light legacy. It seemed the elders of Zhuangbei were not aware of this matter. "My lord." Rachel's throat felt dry as he cautiously tried to negotiate. Lonnie smiled, tossing out 5 or 6 thumb-sized boxes that rolled before them. "Who gave you this golden blood amber?" "Never mind that." He suddenly seemed to lose interest in questioning, waving his hand. "I'm in a good mood today, so I'll give you a chance to speak for yourselves." Rachel trembled all over. The power represented by the golden blood amber from Zhuangbei's biotechnology was something mere pirates like them could not mess with. "My lord." Rachel took a deep breath and spoke with difficulty. "He is very mysterious. I don't know much." "Not much." Lonnie summoned a maid to bring wine. "Then tell me everything you do know, without missing a single detail." The interrogation quietly began in an atmosphere that seemed peaceful but was actually suffocating. Outside the window, the sea remained blue and beautiful. Chapter 142, New Green Leaves in the Study by Halifa Lake. Lu Ling was tapping away at a light screen. He had to draw cards every day, but most of the time, he was drawing from the refugee card pool. It was cheap, cost-effective, and the genes were at least better than the locals. Occasionally, with a stroke of luck, he could even pull out a silver card talent with several specialized skills. Everyone was handed over to Aura for skill training. On Fengling's side, the situation had been initially suppressed. With Aura around, no one could escape the cage, and Lu Ling wasn't worried about her causing any trouble. However, Lian Aura mentioned that she had been acting very strangely lately, constantly practicing skills for revenge, which Aura deemed unstable. After Lu Ling learned about this, he realized he should tell her not to invade others' privacy. The skills inherited by these humans, well, it seemed there was really no inheritance between Lian and Fengling. Lu Ling made some adjustments to his plans, postponing the matter of 10 billion. This huge sum of money lay quietly in the core vault of the Karasi Empire Bank. There were tens of thousands of Imperial naval warships stationed there, and the defense system was incredibly strong. After witnessing the gravitational mirage of the Zhuangbei family, and that ancient relic radiating an ancient aura, Lu Ling gained a clearer understanding of the true power hierarchy of the empire. 16,000 missiles launched in unison. That was merely a display of local powerhouses like those in this place, incomparable to a proper naval fleet. With Lu Ling's cautious nature, anything without absolute certainty would be set aside for now, especially with so many eyes watching. Moreover, with the productive capabilities afforded by EVE technology, there was no need to constantly keep an eye on others' pockets. Damn it, looks like it's time to start mining again. Lu Ling looked at the mining barges in the shop and couldn't help but smile, feeling a familiar sense of warmth. Just then, a knock sounded, and Sindarin entered the study. "Captain, the underground laboratory has been fully completed, and all systems have been debugged and are ready for use." This so-called underground laboratory was an expansion and renovation of the existing dungeon, designed by Aura, which underwent large-scale reconstruction. It features an independent multi-energy matrix, a living system, and state-of-the-art biological research facilities, akin to a small fortress. For this, 1,000,000 star coins were spent to purchase a biotechnology research report. This report thoroughly elaborated on the cutting-edge evolutionary theories of organic life forms at both micro and macro levels, serving as an essential foundation for advanced biological research. At that moment, a discreet hover vehicle glided across the lake and came to a steady stop in the castle's front courtyard. Lu Ling looked through the window and saw a familiar figure stepping out of the vehicle. It was Greenleaf. She had just visited her mother. After the car door closed, she didn't enter immediately, but stood at the foot of the castle, slightly tilting her head to observe her surroundings with a thoughtful gaze. Moments later, she walked toward the main entrance of the castle, calmly greeted by a maid. Lu Ling withdrew his gaze and instructed Sindarin, "Prepare 2 refreshing hot drinks." "Yes," Sindarin replied with a bow and exited. Before long, a slow but steady sound of footsteps approached from outside the study. The door was pushed open directly. Greenleaf leaned against the door frame. Her loose white medical uniform not only failed to conceal her figure, but rather accentuated her curvaceous form. Her ash-gray hair fell loosely, with a few strands brushing her cheeks, adding charm to her slightly languid and pale complexion. Her deep green eyes sparkled with playful amusement, fixated on Lu Ling. "Well, my dear captain, after a few days, you've turned into a big noble, huh?" She deliberately elongated her tone, her voice sweet and somewhat affected, reminiscent of green tea. "On my way here, I encountered all the pretty little maids. No wonder you didn't want to return to the ship. And I almost forgot I have a room there. Turns out, being busy is just an excuse. Huh, man? Cough. What are you saying? Am I the kind of person who can't withstand tests?" Lu Ling pretended to cough, observing her tired expression and gestured for her to sit on the sofa. "You are. I've been watching you, and your beautiful subordinates keep increasing." Greenleaf nodded seriously, confidently walking over to the sofa, crossing her legs. Underneath her medical robe, she was dressed quite decently. Thankfully, Lu Ling had called her over at the last minute. If he had informed her in advance, who knows what she would have worn to test him. She loved doing such things the most. "I also have a bunch of tough guys like Blood Shark and Ghost Crocodile under my command," Lu Ling tried to argue. "TSK. It's only when there are dirty or hard jobs that you remember them, right? You can't say there's no work to do when I think of what they can accomplish. Besides, following me, the bonuses will at least be 10 times what Feng Ling offers, right? And as my crew, you can boldly set foot on the land of Carthage. In the past, could you ever come here?" This statement made Greenleaf pause slightly, his eyes becoming a bit dazed. Indeed, for pirates, they could only catch a distant glimpse of Carthage, which was like a legendary paradise just out of reach, only able to see the hazy glow through the porthole of a starship, sketching its appearance in the deepest of dreams. Meanwhile, at Lioli Beach, it is the top resort beach second only to Silver Sand Bay, with fine, soft white sand covering the coastline, and the azure sea gently lapping at the shore. Visitors from various star domains of Carthage, as well as from other autonomous territories and provinces, gather here, with a lively mix of different languages. By a row of beach chairs, more than 30 brawny men exuding a fierce aura are sprawled out, wearing brightly colored beach shorts that are almost blinding. Achoo! Blood Shark rubbed his nose, thinking, "Damn it, who was thinking about me?" However, his attention was quickly diverted. "Hey, look over there. Wow, that girl has got an incredible figure. She could probably crush my 2 prized walnuts." Blood Shark's rough voice cut through the sounds of waves and laughter. His sunglasses slid down his nose, and his eyes followed a hot bikini-clad beauty with an unabashedly aggressive gaze. "Hey, beautiful. Need me to put sunscreen on you? I'm a professional." A vague response floated back from a distance. Blood Shark scratched his head and turned to the big man next to him. "Old Croc. Did she just say she is not interested? What does that mean?" Beside him, Ghost Crocodile, also wearing sunglasses, had a scarred face that made several servers trying to sell drinks hesitate. He didn't care, however. He stood up, grabbed a few bottles of chilled 2L drinks, and gulped them down. Hearing Blood Shark's words, his voice remained as deep as ever. "She probably thinks you're ugly." "What? I'm ugly?" Blood Shark couldn't believe it. "I've been around Juan Bay for so many years. The women I've been with could line up from bow to stern. No one has ever dared to say I'm ugly." In contrast, Ken appeared much more civilized, dressed in a polo shirt and shorts, still as taciturn as ever. The rest of the underlings looked both excited and restrained, their eyes greedily scanning everything around them. They knew that being able to enjoy a day in such a place would be enough to brag about for a lifetime back in Blackwater Bay. The beach table was filled with delicacies and expensive drinks they had only seen in luxury catalogs before, and the sensation of their toes sinking into the fine, warm sand was unprecedented. "Damn, this is the life." Blood Shark chewed on ice cubes, making a crunching sound. A little further away, Wangs was surrounded by a few curious children. He initially wanted to conceal the conspicuous mechanical arm, but instead, The children saw right through it and surrounded him with chattering questions, their innocence and joy showing no signs of fear. Order only existed in a distant place. Oh, thinking back to the past, we fought tooth and nail for a year, and it might not have even earned us a comfortable day here. Some felt melancholic and reflective. Upon hearing this, the blood shark became excited, exclaiming, "Exactly. That's why it's important to have the right boss." Lou coughed. "Our great captain really knows how to treat us well. A few days ago, he made a good haul and without a second thought, shared the profits with us. We can't even spend it all. It's simply unspendable. Finally, we don't have to be tortured by the Dark Crow anymore. I heard the captain transferred him away. But recently, there have been quite a few people around, similar to the Dark Crow instructor. Our kind of 5-star combat power. Shoo, be quiet. Did you forget Article 15 of the Crew Code? Discussing official business during leave is strictly prohibited. Is this considered that? I'll ask Sister Aura for you. Don't. Just kidding." The usually silent ghost crocodile suddenly spoke up, his voice low but managing to silence everyone. "The captain is better than Feng Ling." This statement was like a stone thrown into calm water, instantly creating ripples. A group of older men quickly huddled together, lowering their voices to gossip like pirates. "I heard the captain locked her up. Is that true? Who do you think is on top, them or the captain?" "Of course it's the captain. I bet 2 stars for 2,000 credits." "I don't think so. That Feng Ling woman is tough." "I bet 5,000. Guess where the captain is having fun right now?" "So envious. TSK, with a female superior and the superior's female secretary." "Sister Lian, you dare to make jokes too? You little rascal, you must have seen a lot." "Huh. Hee hee." In the castle study, Lu Ling naturally couldn't hear the crude jokes of those rough men. Cinderlin knocked and entered, bringing 2 cups of warm, invigorating tea. When Greenleaf took the cup, a fleeting warmth crossed her eyes, but her gaze followed Cinderlin's departing figure until the study door closed again. "Go ahead, busy person. Why did you suddenly call me?" She blew on the tea foam, her tone returning to its usual laziness. "How's the progress on the clone research?" With technical support and computational assistance from Aura, the basic framework was built smoothly and faster than expected. Lu Ling nodded, took out the biotechnology research report, and handed it to her. "Take a look at this. The room has already been prepared for you by Cinderlin. For the time being, your focus may need to shift entirely to this." "What is this?" Greenleaf took the electronic board, her grayish hair falling and brushing over the screen. Initially, she casually flipped through a few pages, but soon her movement slowed, and her breathing became lighter. Her previously indifferent gaze suddenly sharpened, and her pupils contracted slightly. Nerve bundle overload tolerance increased by 400? How is that possible? The Empire has only maintained 27 at most until now. Her fingertips quickly slid over the screen, softly reading the astonishing entries. Telomere directional remodeling, neural consciousness separation and transfer, construct container. When she saw the last item, she gasped. Abruptly looking up, consciousness transfer of the clone. Chapter 143, mining group Greenleaf dove into the underground laboratory and never came out again, not even exchanging pleasantries. Her blue eyes burned with an almost frenzied thirst for knowledge. Lu Ling casually tossed her a copy of the Eve biology skill book, and when she caught it, her fingertips trembled, her wolf-like gaze making him a bit uneasy. Above the castle, the Astro-class frigate hovered silently, like a ghost. The cloaking device was extremely stable, making it hard for even the most sensitive sensors to detect the subtle spatial distortions. Occasionally, a bird flew by, and to the average observer, it merely appeared to veer slightly off its flight path. Lu Ling opened the communication. "Shiwena, schedule a lineup and bring over the second-tier crew for gene optimization." "Understood. I will arrange it immediately," came Shiwena's efficient response. Inside the underground laboratory, several alpha injectors were already prepared. This gene technology derived from Eve not only significantly enhanced an individual's physical attributes, neural responses, and adaptability to the environment, but more importantly, as the gene tier increased, crew members would learn new skills at an exponential rate. Furthermore, the optimization process itself would subtly deepen their sense of identification with the leader, Lu Ling, with long-term effects comparable to a loyalty imprint. For Greenleaf, this was her first encounter with Lu Ling's core secrets. Of course, she would also undergo alpha gene optimization. Her current task was to collect alpha gene sample data to lay the groundwork for future cloning research. As for Lu Ling himself, he indeed wanted to elevate his gene tier immediately, but each optimization required deep sleep for 3 to 4 days, during which he could not be disturbed. With many pressing matters at hand, he needed to focus on building the crucial framework for the black coal mine first. Just as he was contemplating this, there was a gentle knock on the study door, and Cinderlin's voice was soft. "Captain, the goods sent by young Master Parker have been unloaded in the warehouse." Lu Ling's spirits lifted. Parker was indeed reliable. Just 2 days ago, he had casually mentioned it at the Mirage Well, and he hadn't expected the opportunity to arrive so quickly. He stood up, preparing to go downstairs to check personally. when his personal terminal received an encrypted communication from Parker. My friend, good news. My great-aunt is on vacation at her private estate today, and I just found out her exact location. If you can secure her, the cooperation regarding those rich mineral belts will be smooth sailing. Great-aunt. How old is she? 106 years old, in her prime. She is one of the 10 elders of the Zhuangbai family, and has had 2 ancestors who were earls. Lu Ling nodded slightly. In the future era, gene breakthroughs extended lifespans. Despite the Zhuangbai family's over 2,000-year history, they had only reached the 6th generation under the Kruen family. In the empire, noble titles were always hereditary, not the individuals themselves. The Zhuangbai family rules had always been strict. Candidates for earls were chosen based on ability, regardless of birth. As long as they came from Zhuangbai and demonstrated outstanding capabilities, they were eligible to become the head of the family. Of course, the direct lineage had obvious advantages, being closer to the source, but it was not impossible for more outstanding collateral branches to take their place. In this generation, because Parker had gained the support of most elders and the 5th-generation ancestors, he was the most likely to inherit the title for 2 consecutive generations. As long as Parker doesn't make any major mistakes and continues to accumulate achievements, with the support of Kruen, the position of the 7th Earl is practically assured. Most of these noble secrets were pieced together by Lu Ling from casual conversations with Parker. After the communication ended, Lu Ling quickly walked toward the warehouse area on the side of the castle. Inside the spacious warehouse, 3 cars with a unified style and a strong mechanical aesthetic were quietly parked. Their smooth lines and understated metallic sheen, along with wide tires and some exposed precision mechanical structures, exuded a pure sense of mechanical power. The low-slung bodies seemed poised to launch at any moment. Indeed, Parker's great-aunt was a professional racing enthusiast. The presence of these cars here was a carefully selected prop by Parker. According to him, Lu Ling racing against his aunt would surely ignite a competitive spirit, making it a natural progression. Lu Ling patted the cool body of one of the cars. Feeling the solid feedback from the metal, he chose the most aggressively styled model, with the most exhilarating engine sound, and notably, the door was painted with the white 86 emblem. Equipped with an old 3-rotor engine, it had an equivalent displacement of 40. But due to the high power density of the rotary engine, it was much more compact than a piston engine of the same power. He opened the door and sat down in the snug seat, a faint, almost imperceptible fragrance wafting into his nostrils. Why is there a subtle scent? The interior appeared extremely minimalist, but in reality, the mechanical and electronic control systems were highly sophisticated. He inserted a vintage-style mechanical key and twisted it. Virum. The distinctive roar of the rotary engine instantly shattered the tranquility of the warehouse. Ola, access control. Authorization granted. Halifa City structural map loaded. Traffic control module monitored. Autopilot can be activated at any time. This premeditated race was not something an amateur like Lu Ling could compete with a professional. But he had a trick up his sleeve. The engine's roar echoed in the warehouse as Lu Ling lightly pressed the accelerator, the tachometer needle responding swiftly, the sound growing sharper. Then, the sports car shot out of the warehouse like an arrow, the castle gates opening as it raced down the winding mountain road. I'm descending in my AE-86. The castle perched on the mountaintop, a well-maintained asphalt mountain road winding down like a gray-black ribbon, leading straight to the vast blue Halifa Lake at the foot of the mountain. It was early morning, and a thin veil of mist covered the lake's surface, shimmering with a faint golden hue under the light of the rising sun. The water was crystal clear, revealing pebbles and aquatic plants near the shore from a high vantage point. Lu Ling drove for a while, but as the novelty wore off, his interest began to wane. Ola, your turn. He released the steering wheel and the accelerator. The engine sound suddenly became more rhythmic as the vehicle smoothly navigated several curves without him even needing to hold onto the armrest. With the enhancement of his genetic level, this degree of G-force impact felt no different than a few bumps on a bus for him. Outside the window, the picturesque lake and mountains whizzed by. Above, the Astro class slowly ascended. As the altitude decreased, the details of the lakeside area became increasingly clear. One could see the walking paths and viewing platforms built along the lake shore, as well as private docks and villas nestled among the greenery. Occasionally, early risers out for morning exercise or sightseeing would cast surprised and curious glances at a vintage-looking sports car that caught their attention. In a place like Carthage, where ecological regulations are strictly enforced, such vehicles are not something everyone can handle. At the end of the mountain road, a wide lakeside boulevard connected. On one side was the shimmering lake surface, while the other began to feature neatly planned green belts and low-rise commercial art districts. Leaving the lakeside boulevard, the vehicle merged onto the inner-city highway. The traffic here gradually increased, but most of it comprised anti-gravity unmanned transport vehicles gliding half a meter above the ground. The roaring internal combustion engine of Lanling's sports car instantly became the center of attention. In Carthage, all freight vehicles are unmanned. according to the intel provided by Parker. She found her aunt and overtook her decisively. Target identified. The traffic light ahead turned from red to green, the engine roared, and the black car darted past like lightning. Several kilometers away, on the Morning Ring Road, a silver internal combustion engine sports car wove through traffic. The window slid down, and a white-haired girl wearing sunglasses relaxed as the cool morning breeze tousled her silver locks. For Gerda, such moments of solitude, tinged with a sense of mechanical control, were the rarest forms of relaxation in her long life. However, this tranquility was soon shattered. From behind came an extremely unique, high-pitched, and intense engine roar, rapidly approaching at an astonishing speed. That sound, she was all too familiar with it. It had a sharp, tearing quality unique to rotary engines, and it was tuned very aggressively. Gerda's golden eyes glanced at the rearview mirror. A low black figure, like a ghost skimming the ground, cut into her lane at an incredible speed, nearly brushing past her vehicle. In that instant of overtaking, she clearly saw the striking white 86 livery on the side of the car. Gerda squinted her eyes. This black 86 was one of the collectibles in her private garage, a performance beast equipped with a 3-rotor engine. Parker had just borrowed it yesterday. Was it Parker? So ostentatious? Not his style. However, Parker had recently used his rights as the next in line to withdraw 500 million star coins from the family treasury, causing quite a stir in the Elder Council. Gerda was indifferent. Her main business was in industrial minerals. But, watching the black figure gradually fade away, her gaze sharpened. That little brat. Getting bold enough to overtake her aunt. Gerda huffed, her lazy demeanor vanishing, replaced by the sharpness and competitive spirit of a professional driver. Her slender fingers quickly flipped several hidden switches. With a low resonance, her seemingly ordinary silver sports car emitted a deep hum. The body slightly lowered as 3 small-caliber thrusters popped out from the rear. Boom! The thrusters suddenly ignited. The powerful thrust pinned her firmly in the seat as the car's speed suddenly surged, resembling a silver lightning bolt closely chasing a black figure ahead. 2 performance beasts raced one after the other on the ring road. Lu Ling observed this with a smile at the corner of her mouth. As expected, the bait was taken. Gaddis was continuously trying to find an opportunity to overtake, relying on her superb skills and deep understanding of her vehicle's performance. However, she noticed that the driving style of the black car was unusually strange, or rather, precise. The cornering lines were extremely accurate, and the timing of lane changes was so clever it seemed to predict the future. The coordination of the accelerator and brakes showed no hesitation or habitual actions typical of human drivers. It was like a precision machine. When did this guy get so good? Or has he installed a new assistance system? Doubts filled Gaddis's mind, but her competitive spirit kept her focused. She kept closing the gap, nearly matching the black sports car several times, and could vaguely see a blurred figure in the driver's seat, which didn't seem to resemble Parker. In her impression, Parker was indeed not interested in such things, just as she planned to overtake at a long curve using a later braking point. A bulky unmanned transport truck ahead slightly encroached into her lane to avoid a suddenly changing vehicle. Gaddis instinctively tapped the brakes to adjust her route. However, the black 86 in front made a move that made her pupils dilate. It not only did not slow down, but also zipped past the edge of the truck with computer-like precision, without any unnecessary lateral movement. This was definitely not something Parker, with his novice skills, could achieve. Gaddis instantly realized that the driver was definitely not her nephew. She slammed the accelerator, and the silver sports car surged forward again, tightly locking onto the target. On a relatively open stretch of road, she finally matched the speed of the black sports car. Turning her head, the golden light from her eyes pierced through the window, directly hitting the driver's seat across from her. What came into view was the relaxed smile of an unfamiliar male face with black hair and black eyes, calmly looking back at her. Who is he? Could he be Parker's guest? Gaddis squinted her eyes. She understood. The other party had deliberately come to find her. The confusion in Gaddis's mind was instantly replaced by a playful emotion, and a cold arc formed at the corner of her mouth as her gaze briefly clashed with Lu Ling's in the air. Lu Ling withdrew his gaze and raised the car window. The engine roared as he overtook her fiercely once again, disappearing ahead. Gaddis's competitive spirit was completely ignited. She held nothing back, unlocking all the hidden performance of her silver sports car. A faint flow of energy shimmered around the car, and the speed surged again. Tightly gripping the black 86 ahead, Lu Ling casually glanced back, then suddenly focused his gaze. No way. Is he really that good? He was stunned. Ola, get her. The two cars intertwined like two bolts of lightning, racing through the fast-moving traffic, the roar of the engines and the sound of the air being ripped apart deafening. Under Ola's precise control, Lu Ling narrowly led by half a car length. The sports car of Gaddis has revealed its true form: a sharp rear wing, shark fin heat dissipation grille, advanced drag reduction devices circulating energy halos, and the rear thrusters blazing with fire. The sound of horns protesting is incessant. Just as they are about to pass an off-ramp of a large interchange, an old model M79 drone cargo truck, fully loaded, is slowly and steadily merging onto the main road according to its established procedure. Insane. This speed can't handle the turn. Gaddis squints. For the first lane change, the black 86 smoothly and accurately cuts into the drainage ditch on the left side of the truck, the roar of the rotor echoing outside the truck's cockpit. What? Using the drainage ditch to make the turn? The truck's autopilot system immediately detects a nearby high-speed object and triggers a primary evasion command, slightly adjusting its posture to the right. Almost simultaneously, Ola maneuvers the black 86 to complete a second lane change, precisely returning to the original lane in front of the truck. The entire movement is fluid, with no wasted space. However, this brief moment of too extreme high-speed entries and exits creates tremendous pressure on the aging drone cargo truck, whose sensor accuracy and logical processing capabilities are relatively limited. Its system attempts to handle both the left overtaking warning and the rapid return ahead as consecutive events, leading to a brief processing overload in its simple logic circuits. To ensure safety, the system executes the most conservative emergency strategy, a slight brake and a rightward emergency evasion. This seemingly correct conservative operation becomes the catalyst for disaster at high speed. The heavy body of the truck experiences uncontrollable lateral swaying due to the sudden braking force and steering force. Out of control, it happens in an instant. Boom. The truck completely overturns, sliding on the road, sparks flying, and finally crashes hard into the right guardrail before coming to a stop. The cargo door twists and pops open on impact. At this moment, Gaddis' silver sports car is closely following, ready to seize the gap for an overtake. This sudden accident nearly blocks all forward routes. TSK. Gaddis' pupils constrict, and her slender fingers dance rapidly on the steering wheel. The silver sports car emits a sharp screech, the body executing an almost impossible extreme drift, tires smoking, barely stopping at the edge of the scattered cargo. Meanwhile, Lu Ling's black 86 has already come to a steady stop at a safe distance ahead. The scene is chaotic. The overturned cargo box spills out a mountain of brightly colored boxes, scattering and breaking open to reveal thousands of boxes of a certain budget brand's electronic eyebrow pencils. More conspicuously, almost all intact packaging bears large promotional labels. Best-selling hot item. Limited time special price on CC eyebrow pencil. 79 PTYGCP. Lu Ling pushes open the car door, his gaze first sweeping across the accident scene, confirming there are no risks of casualties, as Ola has automatically handled the alarm and traffic diversion. His eyes naturally fall on the silver sports car, which is also his target for this trip, the 106-year-old grandaunt mentioned by Parker. However, he is surprised when the other party gracefully jumps out of the car. A quick glance in the vehicle revealed that this lady was surprisingly a young girl with white hair. She was petite, dressed in a simple dress and sneakers, with her silver hair tied back neatly, exposing her smooth forehead and a face as delicate as a doll. What stood out the most were her golden yellow eyes, a hallmark of pure bloodline. The sharpness and presence in her gaze formed a striking contrast with her youthful appearance. Was this really the elder of the family that managed the minerals, living for over 100 years? Parker hadn't mentioned that his relative looked like this. Although he knew that in the future, genetic technology had advanced, making lifespan and appearance not necessarily correlated, seeing such an extreme contrast in person still surprised him. Gaddis' cold gaze swept over the wreckage of the truck and the scattered eyebrow pencils, then fixed on Lu Ling as if it were a tangible force. Lu Ling collected himself and picked up a box of eyebrow pencil packaging that had fallen at his feet, mumbling, "Oh, is the eyebrow pencil in this star region also 79 credits?" This nonsensical remark caught Gaddis' carefully prepared questions in her throat. She narrowed her golden eyes slightly, scrutinizing the odd behavior of this man. Realizing her gaze, Lu Ling looked up, shaking the eyebrow pencil in his hand, and smiled. "Elder, it seems I accidentally caused some damage to the local beauty industry. 79 credits is quite pricey." Gaddis' golden eyes remained narrowed, but the tension at the corners of her mouth eased slightly. "Expensive?" She tilted her head slightly, her silver hair swaying with the movement, revealing a childlike curiosity beneath her petite exterior. "You're driving a combustion engine sports car and discussing the high price of a 79 credit eyebrow pencil with me, isn't it?" Lu Ling teased. "Domestic brands are tough." Gaddis raised an eyebrow, finding the assertion amusing. "Are their values not worth 79 credits? As she spoke, she picked up a box herself. In the distance, a tow truck and a police hovercar were approaching, with the minimum monthly income of citizens on this planet being 25,000 credits. 3 eyebrow pencils at 79 credits each were merely the cost of a meal. What was expensive about that? 25,000? Minimum income? Lu Ling was taken aback, his teasing expression instantly fading, replaced by a serious tone. "Sorry, that's indeed not expensive." Gaddis listened quietly, tossing aside the eyebrow pencil, her tone returning to indifference. You're implying something. You're not surprised by the price of the eyebrow pencil, but by the social foundation of our society. That's right, Lu Ling nodded. Indeed, this place is prosperous. It's just average. In the future, I might get a chance to see more of this world. But it's just a planet sustained by the resources of the entire star system. If the residents' income is low, that would be unacceptable. Upon hearing this, Lu Ling understood. For someone of Gaddis's level, the standards for measuring things had long surpassed the planetary scale. He gently placed the packaging back in the scattered box, stating sincerely, I will fully bear the loss of this batch of goods and all subsequent handling costs. His attitude was earnest, without evasion or excuses, directly taking on the responsibility. This left Gaddis, who was originally prepared to see how he would eloquently argue and even hoped for more of his sophistry, feeling as if she had been hit in the face with a fist made of cotton. Her golden eyes lingered on his face for a moment, seemingly trying to find traces of hypocrisy, but all she saw was calmness and composure. Humph, compensation is only natural. Gaddis snorted lightly and said, Come on. After going around in circles, you intentionally overtook me with my collectible. What is your purpose? Your collectible? Lu Ling looked at the streamlined black sports car. Before he could finish speaking, Gaddis took out a wristband and directly locked his car, her golden pupils glinting mischievously. All right. Parker, you really are something. Letting me overtake you in your aunt's car. Cough. Lu Ling coughed and introduced himself. I'm Parker's friend, Lu Ling, from the Earth Federation. Earth Federation? Gaddis's eyes flickered slightly. It seemed that Ronnie's information was quite accurate. Gaddis, being the direct daughter of a fifth-generation Earl and the last competitor of Kluin, had willingly given up, allowing Kluin to become the sixth-generation Earl of Juangbi. Are you interested in the mines of my family? Indeed. Parker mentioned that the mineral veins of the Juangbi Autonomous Dominion are shared and distributed by the Council, but the largest share is with your faction. Parker's cleverness in guiding you was evident. Gaddis's expression was calm, creating a striking contrast between maturity and cuteness. Her gaze flickered slightly, focusing on his face. It seems Kluin has sent you to the Gravity Mirage Wells. As the first heir of the previous generation, Gaddis naturally knew the secrets of the Gravity Mirage Wells. Her ability to occupy most of the mining shares was a result of political dealings with Kluin and the Council. But he didn't tell you that the conventional mineral veins in the Mirage Wells, due to the influence of Mirage minerals, have extraction costs about 10 times that of the outside world, and it's almost impossible to transfer. Then I'm even more interested, Lu Ling's eyes sparkled. But he quickly masked it. This precisely indicated that the mineral resources hidden there were far more valuable than those in ordinary mining areas. To the extent that even at 10 times the cost, the Juangbi family still deemed it worthwhile to mine, right? Oh, Gaddis's golden eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a hint of genuine curiosity. 10 times the cost, yet to you it's actually good news? Is the technology of the Earth Federation that powerful? Gaddis didn't have much perception or understanding of warships. In her view, mineral extraction technology was the most important. Naturally, what I currently lack is just practice. Elaborate. Here? Before he could finish, 2 police hovercars landed. The officers recognized the vintage sports car and knew they were about to deal with a mess. The report indicated no casualties, and they estimated they could conclude the case after assessing the damages, a light job. However, when they saw Gaddis and her golden pupils, they were taken aback, and their target was instantly locked onto Lu Ling, the black-haired, black-eyed, yellow-skinned individual. How rare. There aren't many like him on the entire Carthage star. Should we arrest him? Just as they were about to take action, a directive came through the channel from their superior, prompting them to silently turn and retreat into their vehicle and fly away. A tow truck straightened the cargo vehicle and began to repackage the scattered eyebrow pencils. Traffic has resumed, accompanied only by the roar of engines, leaving behind just a black sports car. After a while, a box truck arrived, escorted by 2 rotorcraft, and several people got out to lift the black 86 inside. Chapter 144. Mining cooperation. The basic resources of each stellar system are extremely rich. Even a family like Zhuangbai can maintain prosperity for generations as long as they mine responsibly. The known largest conventional metal asteroid belt has a reserve of about 45 quintillion tons, mainly composed of basic metals like iron and nickel. Even if all of it were produced into Death Vortex-class ships, 11 for billion tons, it could manufacture hundreds of millions of them. Of course, this is merely an example based on resource reserves. Starships cannot all be made of basic materials like iron and titanium. The core, highly rare resources are what ultimately limit the quantity produced. For example, isotopic aggregates, supernova known, and even super-consuming minerals are likely in short supply even for the entire Zhuangbai family. However, the basic conventional resources can almost be considered inexhaustible. Therefore, the export trade of basic minerals accounts for the smallest share of the Zhuangbai family's revenue, with customers only found in the most prosperous Karasi province. According to Gaddis, the minimum shipment volume starts at 500 million tons. The Zhuangbai mining group she controls truly comprises thousands of transport ships. While the mining facilities account for a relatively small share, the family's real profit comes from biotechnology. However, what restricts Zhuangbai and even the entire imperial aristocracy's development has never been the scarcity of resources, but rather technological blockades. Warships ensure the family's strength, but the technology for jump engines is firmly held by the empire, leaving each family with pitifully small quotas. The economy ensures the family's prosperity, but the extraction technology for the vital Xinjiang mines is also a closely guarded secret that must be shared. This is a carefully designed order of human monopoly that hinders overall technological progress and effective energy utilization. From the perspective of civilization's development, it represents stagnation and waste. But for the empire, it is fundamental to maintaining control. Thus, when the variable Lu Ling appeared, it is understandable why Parker would go to great lengths to befriend him. Because he has the potential to break this rule. Minutes later, a large shuttle left the gravitational field of Carthage and entered outer space to activate its jump engine. The cabin environment was comfortable and quiet. Gaddis changed out of her casual dress into a high-quality dark gray suit. Casually draped with a soft jacket bearing the Zhuangbai family crest, suitable for the cabin environment while exuding a sense of authority and ease that belongs to a controller. She sat in a spacious seat, a steaming cup of tea floating beside her. The journey would take about 20 minutes. Lu Ling sat in the seat opposite her, relaxed and polite. He understood that this 20-minute journey was an appetizer before the main course, and striking the right balance was crucial. Gaddis was not Parker. Parker was the future count, and his priority was naturally the overall well-being of Zhuangbai. However, for the veterans like Gaddis, the interests of their own faction come first, as long as it is within the rules of the game. After all, holding more quality resources allows for the cultivation of more talents, and future generations might still aspire to reach the rank of count, turning collateral branches into main lines. She lifted her teacup, gently blew on it, and her golden eyes glanced at Lu Ling. How much do you know about the resource distribution in the Cathay Star system? Parker should have shown you the resource distribution map. I know a little, but I'm only interested in high-level resources like common crystal and limestone. You want to manufacture starships of the Earth Federation on Zhuangbai? A hint of danger flashed in Gaddis's eyes. Such high-end resources are the lifeblood of starship manufacturing. Even with Zhuangbai's foundation, the reserves are by no means abundant. That's right. Lu Ling nodded calmly. Basic resources like iron and nickel are of no use to him. Perhaps he could make a scaled-down version of an Eve starship, but the ceiling of materials ultimately determines the performance limit. Moreover, the current situation is already quite restricted. What can be exchanged for it? I need to see what the mines look like first. 20 minutes passed in the blink of an eye, and the shuttle shuddered slightly as it exited the jump. The normal starry sky reappeared outside the window and in the distance. The flashing navigation lights of the mining operation area became visible. As the shuttle gradually approached, the scene ahead became clearer. Even for the well-traveled Lu Ling, a hint of astonishment crossed his eyes. It was different from what he had imagined. Large turrets and dense closed defense systems were densely packed around the periphery. Countless asteroids were firmly anchored in the void by enormous ring-like devices. These celestial bodies were astonishing in size, with smaller ones like mountains and larger ones nearly resembling satellites. Sturdy drilling arms pierced deep into the bodies, releasing fine mineral dust. The drill heads were hollow, with a pipe in the middle that directly sucked away the initially crushed minerals through built-in channels. In the center of the entire mining area, a modular refinery stretched 15 kilometers long, made up of hundreds of hexagonal structures, resembling a gigantic steel beehive. Countless transport vessels buzzed around like worker bees, delivering raw minerals in and taking refined standard cubic metal blocks out. This is our Zhuangbai number 45 refinery, Gaddis began to introduce. It extracts 2 billion tons of ore daily, with a refining capacity of 200 million tons, and on average, 300 kilograms of solid titanium alloy can be extracted from each ton of common crystal. As she introduced these top-tier local data, her gaze fell on Lu Ling's face, hoping to see a hint of shock. However, Lu Ling's expression showed no change. He merely nodded slightly. Because, to be honest, he wasn't sure if Eve technology was leading in this area. After all, as a guest, one cannot sneakily mine someone else's resources. Furthermore, there was no need for that at the moment. But he could see that this system, which relied on giant machinery and extensive energy input, had a very obvious flaw. The scale is indeed grand, and Zhuangbai's industrial strength is well-deserved. Lu Ling first acknowledged this but then shifted the conversation. However, Elder, I noticed a detail. Your extraction and refining processes seem to heavily rely on physical drilling and high-temperature melting. For a strategic resource like crystal stones, which require a high degree of structural integrity, could this lead to unnecessary losses? He pointed to a giant drill bit that was being retracted from a celestial body for maintenance. Even from a distance, it was clear through high magnification that the tip of the super-hard alloy drill had worn down, with signs of high-temperature scorch marks all over. Gaddis's golden eyes subtly shifted. Indeed, once this mechanized extraction is fully implemented, the daily output is astonishing. However, the manufacturing, replacement, and production losses caused by downtime of these special drill bits, along with significant mineral losses, have long been a financial headache on the reports. Lu Ling continued without pause. This only accounts for the direct losses of the extraction tools. More seriously, there are indirect losses and quality degradation. The high temperatures and metal debris generated from intense friction can severely contaminate the raw ore. I estimate that this leads to at least 20 of the high-value crystal stones being downgraded during subsequent refining due to lattice damage or impurity contamination, even ending up as waste. Gaddis is clearly an expert in this area as well. Extracting hard minerals inevitably leads to losses. Zhuangbei has its own cost accounting system. But as for zero-loss extraction, she gently shook her head, her tone carrying a hint of challenge and a barely perceptible expectation. Such a thing does not exist in this world. What about laser extraction technology? Have you tried it? Lu Ling asked tentatively. Upon hearing this, Gaddis's golden eyes flashed with an expression of as expected, followed by a hint of skepticism. We have tried it, and not just once. She set her teacup down and gestured in the air to bring up a brief data chart. The Zhuangbei Engineering Institute invested heavily in developing a high-energy laser mining system over 50 years ago. We even built prototypes, including the Sun Spear-class laser mining platform. Her tone turned somewhat like that of someone imparting a lesson. The principle is perfect in theory. Focused high-energy laser beams can cut through rock, achieving non-contact extraction and avoiding mechanical wear. However, do you know what its biggest problem is, Your Excellency? Energy consumption? Correct, energy consumption. A hint of appreciation flickered in Gaddis's eyes. To achieve the high power needed for instant cutting of deep crystal stones, the laser generator requires massive amounts of energy. Our test results showed that extracting 1 ton of standard crystal or with the laser system consumes 8 to 10 times the energy of traditional drilling systems. She pointed to the roaring drilling machines outside. Look at those drill bits. They do wear down and need replacement. But their energy conversion is relatively straightforward, with high kinetic energy conversion efficiency. And the laser? Energy comes from the reactor, is converted to light energy, then focused, transmitted, and interacts with matter to generate heat. Each step incurs significant losses. In the end, most of the energy is not used for mining the ore, but wasted in the heating process. She looked at Lu Ling, her gaze sharp. In other words, using laser extraction means we are essentially using energy worth 10-star coins to obtain or worth 1-star coin. This kind of losing deal is something the Zhuangbei family will not engage in. Unless she possessed extremely advanced laser extractors or cost-free energy. This explanation, based on real data and painful lessons, is logically clear and gets to the core. Essentially, it is a logic of entropy increase and decrease. However, after listening, Lu Ling not only felt no disappointment, but instead nodded thoughtfully. The elder's analysis was very thorough and incisive. He first affirmed Gaddis's judgment, then abruptly shifted the conversation, stating that indeed, if one simply increased the laser power for thermal ablation extraction, the energy efficiency would be an insurmountable gap. The failure of the Sun Spear lay in this. He paused slightly and threw out his true intention. How about this, Elder? Let us make a bet. On the outermost edge of this mining belt, let us find 2 asteroids of similar size, each with a diameter of 1 kilometer, and within 3 months. See who extracts more common crystals with less loss. A hint of surprise and amusement flashed in Gaddis's golden eyes. An asteroid with a diameter of 1 kilometer? In this mining belt, such sizes of celestial bodies are as common as dust, usually not even detailed in exploration reports, belonging purely to the peripheral area. 3 months? 4 mining operations that typically calculate extraction cycles in years. That is merely a flick of a finger. What is the stake? Gaddis's golden eyes narrowed slightly. You tell me. The white-haired little girl smiled slightly, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Her expression revealing a political wisdom and contrast that was entirely inconsistent with her petite appearance. If I win, you need to marry a core member of the Zhuangbei family. The candidate can be chosen from the eligible direct descendants of Parker's generation. She paused. Of course, if you don't mind the age and generational issue. I myself am still unmarried. Marriage? He was taken aback. Damn it. She has set a trap from the beginning. These nobles, even with his current mindset, he never expected Gaddis would propose such a direct and domineering condition. Lu Ling instantly understood. The seemingly petite white-haired girl before him had political thinking and decisiveness that were truly at the ruling level of her family's peak. Compared to Kluan, she was equally formidable. The elder's ambition was not small. Lu Ling stated frankly that if it was a marriage, he would inevitably be deeply bound to Zhuangbei. However, in the long run, this tight binding might not be good for either party. Gaddis responded calmly. For worthwhile investments, Zhuangbei is never stingy. If you want mining rights, my proposal is not bad. Even if you lose, marrying me still allows you to obtain the mining rights. Of course, if you prefer someone else, we can distribute according to the bet. This was a blatant attempt to undermine the direct lineage. Gaddis's strength was not inferior to that of the current family, and she had the confidence to back it up. If Lu Ling chose someone else, she would gladly do Cluin a favor. If he chose her, even the Count of Cluin, she could handle it with ease. Just when she thought Lu Ling needed time to weigh his options, she did not expect his reaction to be surprising. This bet is good, I'll take it. Lu Ling agreed after a brief consideration, confident that he could not afford to lose. He then shifted the topic. However, if I win, you must persuade the council to grant me the rights to exploit the gravity mirage wells. The mention of the mirage well rights caught Gerda's attention, her gaze becoming significant. This is beyond the value of the wager itself. The production from the mirage wells is shared by the council. Lu Ling quietly waited for her to continue. You have a close relationship with the family, and if I team up with Clurin, this matter is not impossible. What do the elders want? The little white-haired girl pointed her finger. If you win, you must marry me. Chapter 145, Grandfather. What? Lord Lu Ling is going to be my grandfather-in-law? Parker found it hard to accept. The excitement that had just ignited in his heart now felt cold. Just yesterday, they were like brothers, and today he had to lower himself 2 generations? This change in status was faster than a plane crash. If their relationship were ordinary, it would be one thing. What kind of situation is this? No way. He took a deep breath, his expression growing serious. This matter regarding the marriage proposal was too much. I need to talk to my father. He turned and strode away, his figure disappearing at the end of the corridor, heading straight for Triumph Castle. Almost simultaneously, on the other side of the Carthaginian star, in the city of Lilaha, Shilio Island was basking in the afterglow of the star. This sea pearl, made up of artificial floating islands, underwater domes, and top-notch amusement parks, was slowly drifting according to the preset tidal patterns, outlining beautiful waterway contours. Due to its mobility, the island's outline and internal waterway layout could flow and change within a certain range, hence the name Shilio. This place is a tourist hotspot in eastern Carthage, with an ultra-minimalist design style that maximizes both sea view and privacy, attracting a large number of wealthy individuals, art celebrities, and various dignitaries. Its most captivating feature is the world hidden beneath the azure water, the underwater dome. High-end restaurants, deep-sea observation stations, underwater spa centers, and even the most luxurious underwater suites are located here. Guests can enjoy a 360-degree unobstructed view of the real deep-sea scenery, with glowing fish schools drifting by and strange marine creatures swimming within reach, creating a dreamlike and surreal experience. In the most exclusive private areas, the dome's transparency can be adjusted to the guest's liking. Meanwhile, it integrates the most advanced entertainment technology from Carthage, such as holographic simulations and neural interactive games. At this moment, 1,100 meters deep, in the 67th layer of entertainment, Bloodshark and his gang poured out of the Abyss Frenzy Neural Interaction Center, all wearing expressions of excitement and slight dizziness from the virtual world. Isn't operating the Iron Steed similar to riding a bike? I can do it too. The chubby pirate said with a grin, feeling quite proud. Damn, that was thrilling. Next time, I'll drive the Iron Steed into battle. Bloodshark, still feeling a bit dazed, rubbed his temples. He preferred the solid assault boats over the Iron Steeds. This place is flashy. But how come there isn't a place like Blackwater Bay's Sodus? Someone voiced. You want to try it out? Maybe this place is just more formal? As they were talking, someone pointed ahead and exclaimed, look over there. The crowd's gaze shifted past the bustling heads to a more impressive entrance, where the sign for the VIP exclusive interaction zone glimmered with a cold light. It looked more exciting over there. Let's go check it out. We've explored Carthage thoroughly over the past few days. Ha ha ha. With this 1,000-star coins and dividends, I can't possibly spend it all. P.S. 1-star coin is equivalent to 124,686 PTYGCP credit points in Carthage. A group of people jostled their way to the VIP zone entrance, only to find a long line moving slowly, apparently undergoing strict verification. Through the glass entrance, they could clearly see a large, luxurious sightseeing submarine, adorned with the emblem of the Guyanby family, quietly docked at its exclusive berth, but no one dared approach it. The entrance was blocked by security guards. What's going on? We still have to queue? Bloodshark grumbled unhappily, pointing at the vacant exclusive submarine. Isn't that thing empty? Why can't we board? This place has too many rules. The uniformed hostess wore a formulaic, apologetic expression. Dear guests, please wait a moment. The underwater tour is currently under maintenance and will reopen in about half an hour. Beside her, a service robot repeatedly recited similar phrases. Bloodshark's loud voice drew some glances from the waiting crowd. but most merely took a quick look at these rugged-looking men, who seemed somewhat out of place in the luxurious surroundings, before politely averting their eyes. Just then, a faint hydraulic sound was heard. Inside the VIP zone, the door of a dedicated elevator slid open. A group led by Elder Roney stepped out confidently. He was dressed in a well-tailored dark blue suit, with minimal embellishments, yet exuded a natural aura of authority. Accompanying him were several elegantly dressed individuals, clearly important figures from other autonomous regions or large enterprises. Roney wore a perfectly timed smile, slightly tilting his head as he introduced the unique aspects of the deep-sea journey to his guests, speaking in a composed tone. His peripheral vision had already caught the commotion at the entrance and the particularly loud voice. For him, such scenes were not uncommon on Tidal Flow Island. With a ticket price of 50,000 GCP, there would always be some suddenly wealthy travelers struggling to adapt to the rules and etiquette of the elite. Lord Beckett, Roney said, gracefully extending his arm toward the exclusive sightseeing submarine and the distinguished guests. This way, please. Let us temporarily bid farewell to this lively scene and head to a more suitable place for conversation. His gaze swept over the queue and the somewhat noisy entrance, finally landing on Bloodshark and his group for less than half a second, like a breeze skimming across the surface of the sea, leaving no trace. He would never have imagined that this group, whom he viewed as rough individuals, would have intricate connections with a variable that might stir the future of the Gymby family. Lu Ling Lord Beckett, an old baron from the Marquisate of Rabbit, was active in the various autonomous regions of the Corsica constellation, known for his keen business acumen and conservative political stance. His visit was for a significant collaboration worth up to 5 million star coins. He nodded slightly. Thank you for your efforts, Elder Roney. I've long heard that the deep-sea journey of Shilio Island is uniquely crafted, and today I can finally experience it myself. The group ignored the surrounding gazes and, with a bow from the guards, directly boarded the submarine. The hatch slid shut, completely isolating them from the outside noise. Inside, the atmosphere was in stark contrast to the low-key exterior, showcasing extreme luxury and tranquility. Soft, warm lights illuminated the space, and a faint custom fragrance filled the air, designed to relax the mind. At first, it smelled like a crisp ocean breeze, but upon closer inspection, there was a hint of woody notes that seemed to soothe the nerves, clearly meticulously blended to help guests unwind instantly. The space was much more spacious than it appeared from the outside, with a stunning height that could even accommodate a small high-end ball for dozens of guests. Roney casually handed his coat to a maid, and others followed suit, with dozens of maids taking their belongings. My lords, please make yourselves comfortable. Although this submersible No. 7 is a sightseeing vessel, it often serves as my mobile study for discussing important matters with true friends. His tone was relaxed, yet it pointed to the real purpose of this trip. Lord Beckett's gaze subtly swept across the entire space, a flicker of barely perceptible appreciation in his eyes. This understated yet deeply rooted luxury was precisely to the taste of old aristocrats like him. Under Roney's arrangement, everyone began to enjoy this wonderful deep-sea journey. Roney guided Beckett up the staircase leading to the panoramic observation deck. The submarine trembled slightly and began its descent. Outside the isolation window, a bloodshark watched the submarine disappear into the dark depths, spitting disdainfully. Humph, what's so impressive? Just wait until our captain arrives. We'll buy this broken island. By then, I'll have a special passage named after me, the Bloodshark Master's exclusive route. His words drew a round of carefree laughter from his comrades. For them, it was two entirely different worlds. At that moment, outside the submarine's observation window, the brilliant light of the underwater dome was gradually replaced by the deep blue of the deep sea, as if an invisible boundary quietly separated the two worlds. Roney seated himself with Lord Beckett beside a large, pure transparent viewing glass. Outside, carefully selected ornamental fish swam leisurely, their colors and shapes strikingly beautiful, reflecting against the azure water, creating a flowing tapestry. A synthetic servant presented drinks that shimmered like liquid sapphire, exuding a slight chill, with tiny star-like particles swirling slowly within the glass. This is the tear of the tides, a refined essence of moss that grows at a depth of 1,000 meters. Mixed with a small amount of energy nutrient solution, perfect for refreshing the mind gently before deep discussions, Roney introduced, taking a gentle sip. Lord Beckett followed suit, and the cool, slightly sweet liquid slid down his throat, indeed invigorating his spirit. He put down the crystal cup, his gaze returning to Roney, knowing that the pleasantries had passed, and it was time to get to the point. Elder Roney, I have come not just for those trade routes and specialties. Roney seemed to be in a good mood. As a guest of mine from Juong Bay, whether we cooperate or not, feel free to speak. I received the verbal instruction from the Lord Marquis, Beckett slowly said. Roney's expression immediately became solemn. My lord, such a significant matter is beyond my authority. You should consult Count Krun. Roney, We've known each other for many years. You should understand. Beckett smiled slightly. This is not a major issue. It's merely conveying a message. Oh. The Imperial Senate passed a resolution a few days ago to send troops to the Tuorlan sector to complete colonization within the next 500 years. Ronnie's fingers, holding the crystal cup, paused imperceptibly for half a second. The faint starlight from the tears of the tide in the cup seemed to freeze for a moment along with the constriction of his pupils. Tuorlan? Isn't that the neutral sector connecting the United Stars? Exactly. I presume the Juanbi family has also discussed this internally? Ronnie fell silent. The Juanbi family only held a seat in the Imperial lower house, while the upper house was a domain for nobles above the rank of Marquis, which truly represented the core of Imperial power. Therefore, these lesser nobles had no access to the decisions of the upper house, and often had to rely on layers of transmission. This led to a serious issue: information disparity. Lesser nobles found it difficult to discern the authenticity of messages from above, thus they had to choose to affiliate with some major nobles. Marquis Rabbit was one who maintained a good relationship with the Juanbi family. Of course, the closest ties were with the family of Marquis Jinlan, behind Countess Juanbi. Thus, sometimes Krun's information was even more accurate than that of the elders. This matter has indeed been discussed within the family, but the general consensus is that we have not reached a point of armed conflict. So, the Empire is determined to go to war with the United Stars? The Tuorlan, Sector ID 69, and Tuorlan Corridor, Sector ID 70, had always been buffer zones between the Empire and the United Stars. I can't say for sure. Baron Beckett shook his head. The Marquis wishes for the Juanbi family to handle the logistical routes when it truly comes time to gather for expedition, ensuring stable transport to the front lines. After all, Rabbit is much closer to Juanbi than the Marquis Jinlan's territory, isn't it? The Marquis thinks highly of us. We only have 2 fleets. If a real conflict arises, we would need to send one to Kureisai for gathering, leaving the other to maintain order in Juanbi, which would be quite challenging. How could we possibly take on the burden of maintaining the logistical routes? Ronnie responded with great tact. Seeing this, Beckett personally refilled his cup, his movements smooth and natural as if chatting with an old friend. Elder Ronnie, you are too modest. Who doesn't know of Juanbi's rich escort experience? General Andre made his name during the Battle of Kalanchta. Without his efforts to turn the tide, our logistics fleet would have been cut off long ago. Such a remarkable achievement is still remembered by the noble Senate. Ronnie waved his hand. Those are old stories now. General Andre was merely fulfilling his duty, doing what we nobles ought to do. Strong generals do not have weak soldiers. The old troops led by General Andre are now the backbone of your command. Elder Ronnie, Beckett raised his cup in agreement and downed it in one go. A fleeting look of arrogance crossed Ronnie's face, quickly replaced by caution as he beckoned a servant. Pour wine for the guests. Beckett continued to speak confidently. Speaking of which, it's wise for Count Krun to oversee the situation from the center, but isn't it you and Elder Baddock who have been tirelessly managing logistics and funding? The Marquis often praises in private, saying that the stability of the Juam family today owes much to Elder Ronnie's efforts. These contributions may not be visible in the spotlight, but those with discerning eyes can see clearly. This statement seemed to commend Ronnie's hard work, yet subtly hinted at an uneven distribution of credit. Ronnie was no fool. He caught the underlying message, and a warning bell rang in his mind. He restrained his expression, adopting a more distant and formal tone. Your lordship is too kind. Serving the family is my duty. Brother Krun's overall leadership and wise decisions guide us all, and we each fulfill our roles for the prosperity of Juam for generations to come. As for the Marquis's praise, I feel unworthy. Seeing Ronnie on guard, Beckett was not in a hurry. He sighed softly and spoke sincerely. It is only natural for Elder Ronnie to be cautious. I was merely expressing my thoughts, after all. Opportunities for major matters like Tuolin are fleeting. If Juam can participate early, with your skills and connections, Elder Ronnie, we can secure significant benefits and influence for the family. Let's drink. Let's drink. Ronnie laughed heartily, taking the initiative to change the subject. If your lordship could allocate those specialty trade routes to me, I would be willing to persuade Brother Krun. Beckett cursed the old fox inwardly, but, like the most patient fisherman, gently loosened his line. Instead of showing any displeasure, his smile broadened, and he clapped his hands. Haha, Elder Ronnie is indeed straightforward. Business should be conducted this way. However, good business requires good spirits as well. As the applause faded, the side door of the observation hall slid open. 2 women walked in gracefully. They were pure, native humans, yet possessed a unique charisma that was unforgettable. One wore a deep blue long dress, her black hair styled in an updo, exposing her smooth forehead and long neck, her gaze carrying an innate air of disdain. The other, in stark contrast, donned an artistic fringed robe, her chestnut curls lazily cascading over her shoulders. A subtle smile played at the corners of her mouth, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity about everything around her. her fingertips inadvertently tracing delicate melodies in the air, revealing traits of a musician or dancer. Their beauty was not uniform, but rather distinct in its charm, clearly chosen with care. They aimed to attract Ronnie's attention from different angles. Beckett knew that what Ronnie favored most were the imperfect native humans. In reality, so-called inferior humans were those whose genetic status was deemed insufficient but, for various reasons, could only survive in space. Due to their inability to adapt, they were labeled as inferior. Of course, if they did not live in space, they would not be called inferior. They were generally referred to as native humans. Most native humans were born live, and Beckett had evidently put in considerable effort to find such exceptional specimens. Elder Ronnie, Beckett introduced with grace and propriety, a modest gift to express goodwill. To find these two, my people nearly traversed the entire constellation. The rabbit family has always cherished its